Chapter 598. The power of this attack had far exceeded Kufeng's own strength. Kufeng was caught off guard. So, several cracking sounds were heard. Kufeng's ribs were broken, and his internal organs were severely injured. He raised his head and spat out a mouthful of blood. The bright blood was mixed with pieces of his internal organs. Kufeng's heart turned ice cold. He couldn't even feel the pain in his body at this moment. He only felt one thing. I've been fooled. This is a real ambush. A fatal ambush. The opposite party has a monarch-level expert. Kufeng's heart was filled with regret in an instant. Who could have stopped me if I had left from the beginning? This ambushing expert is very strong. But he's far from being able to kill me. Therefore, I could only wait for a sneak attack to kill him. However, it was already too late for him to realize this. This attack would have been a fatal injury. Chu Yang had put on an act for the purpose of Xie Zhiqiu's attack. Kufeng was extremely cautious. In fact, he was excessively cautious. It wouldn't be easy for anyone to kill such a person. After all, he wouldn't give anyone a chance to deal with him. Chu Yang had risked his life to tease him a moment ago. There were more than 200 experts below. But none of them had dared to go up to him. He would have run away if they had gone up. He would have become the biggest hidden danger if he had run away. In fact, it would have been enough to make people restless. Therefore, Chu Yang could only break his head to make him stay. His cautiousness was an advantage. But his excessive cautiousness was his weakness. Therefore, Chu Yang had tirelessly teased, deceived, and played with him. And he had finally succeeded in provoking Kufeng's anger. Chu Yang had been fully confident in his heart when he had slapped Kufeng's face. Kufeng can't run away. He wouldn't have been able to endure such an insult even if he had been able to endure it. Sure enough, Yang Kufeng was enraged. However, Chu Yang still didn't feel at ease. So, he continued to test him a few more times. And he had thoroughly dispelled Kufeng's last misgivings. Humph. It's only logical at this time. This process seemed tedious. But it was indispensable. This plan couldn't have succeeded even if Kufeng had been a little cautious. First, he provoked and angered him. Then he provoked and angered him. Then he humiliated and angered him even more. After that, it became a test. Finally, he provoked and angered this guy to the point that he lost all reason and all caution. Only then did he succeed. It was as if Chu Yang was holding his own head and dancing on a steel wire rope above a high cliff. Every moment, was a fatal crisis. The gap between the two sides was too great. The difference between a mid-grade king-level expert and a mid-grade emperor-level expert wasn't as simple as a mid-grade revered martial artist and a mid-grade king-level expert. In fact, the gap between a first-grade emperor-level expert and a second-grade emperor-level expert was comparable to the gap between a high-grade revered martial artist and a low-grade king-level expert. Furthermore, the further one progressed, the greater the disparity. To provoke such a powerful existence with such a tiny amount of strength, how could the danger be described in just a few sentences? Not to mention other things, with Chu Yang's current martial power, even using Calamity Sword would not be able to hurt him. Xie Zhiqiu's two palms heavily pounded on Kufeng's body. Kufeng's entire body felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He crazily spouted blood and was sent flying backwards. At this instant a sword light flew up from the left side. The man and the sword combined as one. The sword light was dazzling and swift. Then, it heavily pounded on Kufeng's body. A saber light dazzled on the right side. The man and the saber light were like one. The saber light was mighty and overbearing. It heavily pounded on Kufeng's body. Gu Du Xing, Dong Wushang, the sword emperor, and the saber emperor attacked at the same time. The black dragon sword pierced straight into Kufeng's body from the left side, and came out from the right side. The black saber hacked down from the right side. The tip of the saber had already appeared on the left side of Kufeng's body by the time he regained his balance. It seemed as if the saber and sword had installed a cross in Kufeng's body. The saber light and the sword energy exploded inside Kufeng's body at the same time. Okufeng screamed loudly. He was constantly spitting out blood clots and pieces of his internal organs. However, he was still struggling. He screamed miserably as he used the last of his strength to firmly clamp the saber and sword. Gu Duxing and Dong Wushang screamed as they were sent flying like rubber balls. Xie Zhiqiu's silhouette flashed as he rushed forward. His palms were like mountain-splitting axes. He pounded on Okufeng's body a dozen times in succession. Okufeng's body swayed from side to side. His flesh and blood continued to fall from his body, and his white skeleton was exposed. However, he kept his mouth shut and didn't fall down. He ferociously glared at Xie Zhiqiu with his ghastly eyes. He didn't draw back. Instead, he advanced forward. He fiercely extended his hands and thrust them towards Xie Zhiqiu's eyes. He clearly realized that his sternum had been broken and his internal organs had been destroyed. His current injuries meant that he would die for sure. It was impossible for him to perish together with his opponent. So, the only thing he could do was to attack his opponent's fragile eyes. And a ray of light was being projected through this hole. This hole was getting bigger and bigger and was slowly expanding. This poison is very powerful. Xie Zhiqiu was flabbergasted. This is corpse poison. Our medicines can't restrain this poison. Everyone quickly disperse. Chu Yang loudly shouted. More than 200 experts scattered in all directions, as if they had seen a ghost. Xie Zhiqiu then ordered, everyone, go and kill the remnants of the O clan. Don't let any of them escape. Everyone roared in agreement and flew out one after another. Chu Yang sighed and didn't speak anything. There was no such thing as a woman's benevolence in the upper three heavens. After all, one couldn't be careless when it came to a clan like the O clan. And they might be able to take revenge in case someone managed to escape with the poison technique. Poison was the most dreadful thing in the world. Chu Yang wouldn't bring a clan extermination crisis to his allies just because he couldn't bear it. Blood-curdling screams resounded from all directions. Chu Yang and the others were watching from where they were. The roof of the main hall was slowly decaying, and the decaying speed slowed down after a big hole had formed in it. Those rotten things had turned into air. Not even a speck of dust was left behind. What a powerful poison! Xie Zhiqiu gasped. He suddenly recalled that Okufeng had stabbed him with his finger. So, he couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine. He turned around and grabbed Chu Yang's hand. He then excitedly said, Minister Chu, you saved my life again. Elder Xie's words are too serious. Chu Yang slightly smiled. Chu Yang felt a chill in his heart as he looked at the tyrannical nature of this poison. Xie Zhiqiu wiped his sweat and said, I can't thank you enough for your kindness. Little brother, I won't mention it since you don't want to mention it. I only hope that you will remember this. My Xie clan will always be Minister Chu's ally. Minister Chu will die 10,000 deaths if he has any request. Chu Yang blinked. Then he suddenly smiled and said, Elder Xie, I have no choice but to be thick-skinned and make a request since you are so grateful to me. Xie Zhiqiu laughed and said, just say it. I'll agree to it no matter what it is. Then you betroth your great-granddaughter, Xie Danfeng, to my junior martial brother, Tan Tan. Chu Yang smiled and said, no problem at all, Xie Zhiqiu said with a smile. The two of them are in love with each other. I would have helped them even if you hadn't said it. What kind of request is this? Chu Yang faintly smiled and said, but this is also my request. The two of them looked at each other. They had a tacit understanding and laughed. Xie Zhiqiu was lying through his teeth. Tan Tan and Xie Danfeng were in love with each other. But they were far from being in love with each other. So, it was more like they were enemies. They would fight whenever they met. Moreover, Tan Tan seemed to have some misgivings during this time. So, he no longer mentioned this matter. However, Chu Yang could see the pain in his eyes from time to time. So, how could he not take this matter to heart? Then, everyone began to pack up the O clan's belongings. The carriages were packed up. Eventually, the carriages withdrew from the O clan's gate. But a huge fire had also started to burn in the O clan. The raging flames stretched for hundreds of miles. And half of the sky had turned red because of it. The O clan will no longer exist in the three heavens from now on. Chu Yang was walking at the end of the team. He turned around and looked at the magnificent flames. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Then he turned around and silently followed the team. The O clan was gone. The Meng clan was gone. So, would the next target be the Tu clan? Or the Black Devil clan? Chapter 599. How can you do this without my consent? Tan Tan jumped up and down. He was flustered and exasperated. His two strange eyebrows almost jumped out of his face as he said, "You are too much. Too much. Just like that, you promised the lifelong happiness of your one and only junior martial brother to someone else. But I want to have a duel with you." Chu Yang rolled his eyes, but didn't say anything. He pretended as if he hadn't heard anything. This guy had started to jump up and down and chatter incessantly ever since Chu Yang had returned and found out that Chu Yang had arranged a marriage for him. He had been harassing Chu Yang since the early morning. And it was already afternoon now. Chu Yang pretended as if this person didn't exist in front of him. He concentrated on helping the sword spirit pick up the harvest this time. All the gold and silver treasures belonged to the Xie clan. Then, they were randomly distributed among the experts who had come to help them. However, all the rare materials and treasures belonged to Chu Yang. The sword spirit in the tribulation space was very excited. Tan Tan was indeed panicking. He paced back and forth in the room. He suddenly turned around, and suddenly turned around. He scratched his ears and cheeks, and frowned miserably. His face wrinkled like a cigar. He looked extremely anxious. Gu Du Xing, Dong Wushang, GMO, Luo Kadi, Rui Butong, and Ao Xie Yun foolishly looked at Tan Tan pacing back and forth. They couldn't help but restrain their smiles. Is this guy really unwilling? But Tan Tan looked up and heaved a long sigh. Senior martial brother, Chu Yang, this is the matter of my generation. You didn't even discuss it with me. How can you decide on your own? But I'm going crazy. Chu Yang rolled his eyes again and changed his sitting position. Senior martial brother, you have to uphold justice for me. Tan Tan turned in front of Chu Yang and swayed back and forth. Are you done yet? Chu Yang angrily glared at him. He then shouted, "Sit down." Tan Tan was startled. He looked at Chu Yang with a dumbfounded expression. Then, he sat down on the ground with a plop sound. Chu Yang finally finished counting the harvest. He suddenly stood up and said with a fierce look on his face, "Who was the one talking in his sleep the night before yesterday?" He said, "Little Miss Xie Dan Feng, I want to consummate my marriage with you." Tan's face turned black and he panicked. I talked in my sleep? Did I talk in my sleep? You heard it? Chu Yang snorted and continued, 2 nights ago, someone was talking in his sleep. He said, "Little Lady Dan Feng, luckily I don't have a fever anymore. Otherwise, you would have become barbecued meat the moment you married me." Tan Tan was at a loss as to what to do. He blinked his eyes and innocently said, "Did I really say that?" Chu Yang ignored him and continued, "That day on the road, I passed by someone's tent and heard someone talking in his sleep. Xie Dan Feng, I miss you so much." Tan Tan was dumbfounded. He pointed at his own nose. "Is it really me?" Chu Yang nodded seriously. "How am I supposed to meet people?" Tan Tan covered his face. Suddenly, the room burst into laughter. "But I still can't." Tan Tan took his hand away. Then he became serious. "Senior brother, I can't marry her." But Tan Tan's face was somewhat sad. "It's not like you don't know my situation. The current me is a monster. I will harm others." "Shut up." Chu Yang shouted. His eyes were dangerously close to him. "Say one more word and I'll kill you." But Tan Tan pitifully said, "My heart is a little..." "Shut up. Master isn't here. So, I'm in charge of your affairs." Chu Yang snorted. He pointed his finger at Tan Tan's forehead, and Tan Tan immediately staggered. "I said it's in charge." Understand? Tan Tan sighed in despair. As for your strange behavior, of course, you have to let her know. Chu Yang snorted and said, I believe that Xie Dan Feng won't care about that since she has taken a fancy to your appearance. The entire room burst into laughter as soon as he said this. Even Ao Xie Yun, who had a lot on his mind, couldn't help but smile. Tan Tan scratched his head and sighed, I'm afraid that little lady Xie Dan Feng won't understand. Wouldn't that be? At this point, a clear and angry voice suddenly said, Who are you calling a little girl? Tan Tan was at a loss for words. Everyone followed the voice and looked towards the entrance. They saw a graceful red-clothed woman standing outside the door. Her eyes seemed as if they were about to shoot fire as she looked at Tan Tan. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept in and pushed Tan Tan to the ground. Then her fists fell on him like raindrops. Tan Tan clenched his teeth and asked, Who is this little girl? Who is a little lady? Tan Tan knew that he was in the wrong. So, he didn't dare to fight back. He only screamed repeatedly. Bang bang bang, heavy pounding sounds came from the places where Xie Danfeng's fists and Tan Tan's body had collided. All the brothers were dumbfounded. Their faces were covered in cold sweat. She's really valiant. Such a daughter-in-law, except for Master Tan Tan, everyone present would politely decline. They can't enjoy such luck with women. Ji Mo's eyes almost popped out. His face was full of horror. He secretly thought, Alba isn't like her, right? Is she the same? Isn't she the same? He suddenly sighed in grief. He almost cried when he thought of how he had fallen into Huyen Alba's hands. His heart ached. It seems that they are the same. He looked at Tan Tan as if he was looking at his predecessor's example. The expression on Ji Mo's face suddenly became like that of a martyr. He almost stepped forward, hugged Tan Tan, and cried, Brother, we are the same. Oh. There were two people at the door who were similarly dumbfounded. They were the old ancestor of the Xie clan, Xie Zhiqiu, and the clan lord of the Xie clan, Xie Guang'an. Both of them had the same expression on their faces. Their eyes were wide open, and their mouths were wide open. They had a dull look on their faces as they looked at their great-granddaughter, violently beating up her fiancé. And this was happening in public. Xie Zhiqiu's face turned black on the spot. He ferociously looked at Xie Guang'an and angrily said, You raised a good daughter. Xie Guang'an lowered his head in grievance. He then muttered, This is inherited from my mother. It has nothing to do with me. Xie Zhiqiu became furious. He shouted, Both mother and daughter are shrews. Xie Guang'an was submissive. He lowered his head and didn't say anything. He secretly curled his lips and said in his heart, Old ancestor, you weren't necessarily that strong back then. I heard that you sometimes do martial arts squats on top of the urinal. Do you think I don't know? A series of banging sounds came from the room. Tan Tan had finally become angry. Get up quickly. You're not done yet, are you? Master Tan is embarrassed to teach a lesson to a woman like you. Don't reach for a yard after taking an inch. Tan Tan angrily said, Be careful or I'll flip out. Xie Dan Feng had almost vented her anger. She was about to stop. But she became even angrier when she heard these words. So she shouted, You dare to flip out? Well, flip out for this old woman to see. Ugly woman, little mother's skin. Tan Tan shouted, Ugly freak. I'll kill you. Xie Dan Feng didn't give in. Xie Zhiqiu and Xie Guang'an couldn't watch any longer. They shouted at the same time, Stop. They had only shouted one word when they shut their mouths. Then, they opened their eyes wide again. They saw Tan Tan roar loudly. He twisted his waist and exerted his strength with his arms. Then he pressed Xie Dan Feng down with a plop sound. He then sat his buttocks on Xie Dan Feng's belly. Then he said with an evil grin, I'm a dignified man. But I can't deal with you, little mother's skin. He clenched his fists and pounded them down like raindrops. He didn't care about her head or face. Bang bang bang, bang bang bang, Xie Dan Feng screamed, Ugly freak. You ugly freak. You dare to hit me. You dare to hit this old woman. However, Tan Tan turned a deaf ear to her. He had hid enough in front of her. So, he turned around and slapped her plump buttocks with his palms. She was slapped until her buttocks rolled like waves. Chu Yang and the others inside the room, and Xie Zhiqiu and Xie Guang'an outside the room, closed their eyes in unison. This is an eyesore. This is a scandal. GMO closed his eyes. The muscles on his face twitched and twitched. A feeling of worship rose from the bottom of his heart. My idol. He's a real man. This is fucking hard to die. If I can do this to Aobua, I won't have any complaints even if I die, Xie Dan Feng screamed. But Tan Tan's cultivation was far superior to hers. So, she felt as if a mountain was pressing down on her body. Xie Dan Feng couldn't bear it anymore. She shouted, I submit. I'm impressed by you. Bastard, why haven't you let go of me yet? Chu Yang closed his eyes. His cheeks also trembled. This, the woman who can make Tan Tan take a liking to her, is truly extraordinary. Let's not talk about the world-shaking fight. But she still begs for mercy once she falls into a disadvantageous position. Who would beg for mercy in such a situation if it were any other woman? What a pair of weirdos. However, Tan Tan still didn't give up. He scowled and asked, Are you convinced? Xie Dan Feng gasped for breath. I'm convinced. This old woman is convinced. Tan Tan finally stopped. But he still rode on her body like a tiger. Then, he asked in a heroic and spirited manner, Who has the final say in our family when we get married? I have the final say. Xie Dan Feng scowled and gnashed her teeth. This is a matter of principle. So, I can't give in even an inch. Bang bang bang. Tan Tan continued to beat her up. Then he asked again, Say it again. Who has the final say? I have the final say. I have the final say. Xie Dan Feng would rather die than submit. She ferociously looked at Tan Tan. You ugly bastard. Even if you beat me to death, I still have the final say. I don't believe that I can't beat you. Tan Tan was furious. His two iron fists pounded down with a rumbling sound. He panted for breath. Who has the final say? Who has the final say? Boo-hoo, you ugly bastard. Xie Dan Feng cried. You have the final say for the time being. After a few days, whoever's fist is harder will have the final say. Wait until I beat you. Then I will have the final say. Pumph. You still want to beat me? You don't stand a chance in this generation. Tan Tan raised his eyebrows and said in a fiendish manner, Are you sure you want to marry me? You want to be my wife? Dong Wushang smashed his head on the table with a bang. Then, his head bounced back and forth a few times as if he was in a free fall. Xie Dan Feng didn't submit. Instead, this old woman submitted. Motherfucker! How can you ask your wife like this? Pumph. Xie Dan Feng pouted and turned her head away. However, she said fiercely, If I don't marry you, I'm afraid that you'll be a bachelor for the rest of your life. This old woman is being kind. Don't think that this old woman likes you. Gu Duxing and Ao Xian also smashed their heads on the table with a bang. Tears streamed down their faces. We also submit? Good. Tan Tan shouted, I have many problems. Are you sure you won't regret it? Xie Dan Feng wiped her tears and sobbed, This old woman is very regretful right now. You're not allowed to regret it. Tan Tan said angrily, Say it. Do you regret it? Chu Yang and the others rolled their eyes at the same time. Their bodies twitched and they collectively fainted. Chapter 600. What a scandal! What a scandal! Xie Zhiqiu blew his beard and glared. His old face looked like charcoal. This is the misfortune of our clan. This old man is furious. Xie Guang'an was standing straight in front of him. He was constantly wiping his sweat. He was enduring the anger of the old ancestor. Xie Dan Feng and Tan Tan were standing on the side. Their faces were also bruised and swollen. Chu Yang and the others had a serious look on their faces. They were sitting upright and still. They were looking straight ahead. This old man hasn't been in charge of the clan for several years. I didn't expect that the daughter of the clan would be taught by you to become like this. Xie Zhiqiu pointed at Xie Guang'an with bitter hatred. His finger trembled. Look at what you've done. Xie Guang'an lowered his head deeply. He didn't dare to utter a word. Xie Danfeng bit her lip. She timidly walked over and held Xie Zhiqiu's arm. She shook it and acted like a spoiled child. Old ancestor, Chu Yang and the others got goosebumps all over their bodies. This tigress can also act like a spoiled child. Xie Zhiqiu was even more unbearable. His whole body trembled and his face turned ashen. Don't call me Danfeng. Xie Zhiqiu's whole body trembled. He was on the verge of tears. I saw that you were cute and lovable when you were a child. So, I liked you very much. I didn't expect that your father would teach you to become like this. This old man is heartbroken. Xie Guang'an opened his mouth wide. How can you blame me? Don't tell me that I don't want my daughter to be a virtuous woman. But this girl is like this. What can I do? However, even though he opened his mouth, he didn't dare to say anything. The consequences would be very serious if he were to say these words. Even if the old ancestor didn't get angry, his daughter and her mother would skin him alive. Minister Chu. Xie Zhiqiu shamefully looked at Chu Yang. His old face was as red as a monkey's, but the misfortune of our clan has made you laugh. Chu Yang forced a smile. It's nothing. Miss Danfeng's character is straightforward, cheerful, and generous. She's a rare woman of Jianghu. Xie Zhiqiu's old face turned red. He coughed a few times. She is a barbaric and a little silly. What's with her straightforwardness and generous? He blinked and said, So, this marriage, is it still valid? As he spoke, his face turned red. She thought in her heart, I wasn't very satisfied at first. I felt that this fresh flower was stuck in cow dung. But now, it seems that this fresh flower and cow dung should be reversed. It's already a blessing that he's willing to take this crazy girl. After all, there won't be another shop after this village. My great-granddaughter may have to stay at home forever if this Tan Tan doesn't want her. Of course, I will. Chu Yang replied in a righteous and resolute manner. That's great, that's great. Xie Zhiqiu felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. His smile became even more cordial as he said with curved eyes, It seems to me that these two are a match made in heaven. It's simply a heaven-sent match. Since that's the case. He turned his head and said in a dignified tone, Guang En, do you have the token with you? Xie Guang En felt aggrieved. Since ancient times, when would the woman take out the token of marriage first? The man would ask a matchmaker to come first. Then he would discuss the marriage. The woman would refuse even if she was very willing. Then, the second matchmaker would be chosen. The third matchmaker would then decide the marriage. The man would then present a monetary gift as a betrothal gift for the 3 matchmakers. Finally, the 8 characters would be matched and the woman would exchange the token of marriage. This is a done deal. How can it be that my daughter has to take out the token of marriage first? What is this saying? Xie Guang En fumbled around his body. In fact, he had it with him. But he had to make a gesture. Father. Xie Danfeng stamped her foot. What's wrong with you? This is such a big matter. How can you forget where to put such an important thing? Xie Guang En's face turned black. He had no other choice but to say, Let me look for it. I'll help you look for it. Xie Danfeng rushed forward like an arrow. Then she stretched her hand into her father's bosom and complained, This is related to your daughter's lifelong happiness. How can you be a father like this, Xie Guang? And almost fainted from anger. We haven't even gotten engaged yet. But you're already helping an outsider? Aren't I just picking a fight? Isn't this for your own good? You can't wait any longer. So, you're directly going to take my pocket? Look at you. You haven't even married into the family. But, you've already been beaten black and blue. So, you're in such a hurry to get married? You want to get beaten up? This is preposterous. Xie Danfeng didn't get enough time to stop her. She had already turned her father's pocket upside down. And a pile of things fell out with a crashing sound. Xie Danfeng picked them up and held them in her bosom. Then she happily ran to Tan Tan. She pulled him, and the two of them sat down. Look. Which one do you think is good? Which one is suitable? Xie Dan Feng happily fiddled with it. Then, she conveniently picked up a purple jade pendant. She turned it over and over and looked at it. This one is very suitable for me to hang. Then, she stuffed it into her pocket. Then, she grabbed another one. This one is for you. I want this one. This one is for you, this one. All the things in Xie Guang's pocket were divided between Tan Tan and Xie Dan Feng in an instant. Tan Tan's bosom was full. He somewhat hesitated and said, "This isn't very good, right?" Tan Tan didn't know much about the ways of the world. But he still felt that it wasn't right to plunder his father-in-law's belongings before they got married. What's not good about it? Xie Dan Feng chuckled. Then she scolded, "You idiot! This old lady will marry into the world-defying stage heavens. This is a betrothal gift. But this is the only time you will get a dowry at most. You can't do anything else. My stingy father may not even give you anything if we act too late. You can go and cry at that time." Tan Tan's eyes lit up. He touched his chin and said, "These words are very reasonable." Xie Guang's entire body trembled. He angrily said, "You evil creature. Are you even a little bit like a girl? You actually..." He was so angry that white foam came out of the corners of his mouth. It seemed that he was about to faint. "Father," Xie Dan Feng said with dissatisfaction, "your daughter will have to live by herself after she gets married. Do you have the heart to watch your daughter live a difficult life and not eat?" Xie Guang's complexion turned ashen. He coldly snorted and didn't say anything else. He flicked his sleeves and stormed out of the door. He was so angry that he almost fainted. He didn't even greet the old ancestor before he left. Chu Yang took out his hand from his bosom. He had an innocent look on his face. He had wanted to give a betrothal gift for his junior martial brother. But he hadn't expected that Tan Tan's wife would take care of it. Not only did he not spend a single cent, but she also almost made his father-in-law go out naked. Xie Zhiqiu was relieved. "I've finally sold this scourge." He twirled his beard and said, "Minister Chu, the Jianghu is in turmoil now. So, it's better to get married as soon as possible." Chu Yang understood the meaning behind his words. He repeatedly nodded in agreement. "Old ancestor, you're right. We must get this matter done as soon as possible." Xie Zhiqiu laughed. "That's exactly what I want. You see, let Tan Tan stay here. Then we'll wait for Dan Xiong to come back every half-month or 20 days. How about that?" Chu Yang was startled. "So fast? I must inform Master about this matter no matter what. Meng Chao Ran won't be present when Tan Tan gets married." Chu Yang could imagine that Meng Chao Ran will beat his buttocks until they become as big as a wash basin. "I will report this matter to Master as soon as possible," Chu Yang hastily said. "Well, that's it. I'll wait for your good news." Xie Zhiqiu stood up in a sanctimonious manner. He then got ready to leave. "Dan Feng, come back with me." "No, I want to stay here." Xie Dan Feng didn't want to comply. Xie Zhiqiu frowned. "What a scandal. You're about to get married. Why don't you hurry back home and learn how to be a wife and a mother from your mother? You're not allowed to show your face before you get married." Xie Dan Feng raised her head and said, "Today's marriage has been decided. So, your granddaughter belongs to someone else. You're a member of the Tan clan. So, I naturally have to stay in the Tan clan. Old ancestor, you haven't given your new great-grandson-in-law a gift for your first meeting." Xie Zhiqiu finally realized how Xie Guang'an had felt a moment ago. His old face turned into charcoal in an instant. He snorted. His face was full of confusion and shame. "I've made a fool of myself in front of Minister Chu." Chu Yang forced a smile and cupped his hands in obeisance. "It's nothing. Let young Miss Xie talk here for a while. Cough cough. We'll send young Miss Xie back in a while." Xie Zhiqiu shook his head and heaved a long sigh. Then he shook his head again and sighed again. He was obviously very confused. He sighed more than a dozen times in a row. Then his body swayed, and he disappeared without a trace. Xie Dan Feng chased after him. Old ancestor, you haven't given your gift yet. Don't tell me you don't want to? A plop sound was heard from afar. It seemed as if something had fallen from a high place, or someone had fallen down. Bursts of laughter were heard from behind. Xie Danfeng suddenly turned her head. She wiped her sweat and patted her chest as she said, I finally got rid of them. Then she suddenly raised her willow-shaped eyebrows and opened her almond-shaped eyes wide. She then shouted loudly, Tan Tan, you bastard! Why haven't you confessed yet? She clenched her teeth and approached him step by step. What's so unusual about you? You said that you're a monster? Tan Tan was startled. He said, What's wrong with you? Pumph. We've been here for a while. So, I've heard most of what you said. Xie Danfeng roared, Why do you think I made old ancestor and the others leave in such a hurry? Wasn't it because I was afraid that they would ask about your abnormality? You're a blockhead. You don't know how to turn things around. What will you do if you screw things up? Gu Duxing and the others were startled. This girl isn't stupid. However, they saw that Xie Danfeng had already pulled Tan Tan's ear and was walking towards the inner room. Come, come, come. You tell me everything. Awesome. GMO wiped his sweat and gave a thumbs up. Big brother, your junior martial brother's wife is a big girl. She's not simple. Chu Yang snorted and rolled his eyes as he said, Nonsense. You are the younger brothers of aristocratic clans. Who among you is a real fool? Everyone laughed. Then, they heard Xie Danfeng's piercing voice coming from the inner room. What's wrong with this? Isn't it just not eating? What's wrong with eating inner cores of spirit beasts? Other people can't even bear to eat them. This shows that you have extraordinary innate talent. Chu Yang and the others collectively felt the urge to faint as they heard this. Patting sounds were heard. It should be Xie Danfeng patting Tan Tan's shoulder. Don't worry. It doesn't matter what you eat as long as you don't eat shit. I'll accept it. Isn't it just the inner cores of spirit beasts? I'll go to the clan's treasure house later. As for my dowry, I don't want anything else. I'll take away all the inner cores. Then, they heard Tan Tan cheering, Long live my wife. Outside, the 7 brothers rolled their eyes and twitched as if they were dead. They were the best couple. To be continued. Chapter 601. Tan Tan's matter was finally settled. Chu Yang had also put down a load on his mind. He had originally thought that Xie Danfeng would find it difficult to accept Tan Tan's strangeness. But now, it seemed that his worries were groundless. He didn't need to do anything. Xie Danfeng had understood everything on her own. She had thought it through, accepted it, and acted as if nothing had happened. She had even added the words gifted. Chu Yang couldn't help but sigh in his heart. He muttered, In the past, we always thought that some things were very difficult. So, we always had misgivings. We didn't dare to do it. We even created difficulties for ourselves. Therefore, this made this matter even more difficult to handle. But, if we don't think about anything and just let nature take its course, we will find that this matter is actually a smooth road. Everything will come naturally when the conditions are right. We don't even need to spend any effort to solve it. He heaved a long sigh of relief. Tan Tan's marriage is like this. And our martial path is also like this. The brothers had been laughing at first. But they quieted down when they heard these words. They slowly thought about it, and seemed to have understood something. Gu Duxing slowly nodded and said, That's right. For a martial artist, revered martial artist is undoubtedly an unattainable goal. And for revered martial artists, emperor level and monarch level are legends. But for monarch level, supreme level is even more of a myth. Therefore, you can never climb up a level when you regard it as a myth. That's because you regard it as unsurpassable. This is an inner demon. Chu Yang nodded and said, Yes. So, we only need to cultivate step by step. We don't need to care about the level of king level or emperor level. We only need to take one step at a time. It's just like life. We have to walk. So, why should we care about the next step since we have to walk? Dong Wushang, GMO, and the others lowered their heads and pondered carefully. The reason was very simple. But it was very difficult to think of it. And it was even more difficult to do it even if they thought of it. But it was just as Chu Yang had said, if you don't do it because it's difficult, then you will never succeed. Just keep your head down and move forward. You have to take that step no matter where you go. Why should you care about monarch level? Or supreme level? When one truly reaches the end of one's life, even if one was only a warrior in one's lifetime, it would still be the end. Supreme level, you will also reach the end. What was the difference? The atmosphere in the room became quiet. Let's talk about the next step. Chu Yang clapped his hands and said, you too come out. Xie Dan Feng and Tan Tan came out with red faces. Xie Dan Feng blushed when she saw Chu Yang and the others. She hurriedly said, I'm going back. Then he dashed out like he was flying. Take care. The brothers said in unison. A coquettish voice came from outside. We have already exterminated the O clan. I believe that this news will shake the entire heavens within 3 days. Chu Yang slowly said, it can be said that the extermination of the O clan will cause an explosion in the Jianghu. When the time comes, we must be prepared to welcome this storm. The few of them were silent, but their eyes were shining brightly. This 3-day storm is an opportunity for our clans. Gu Duxing pondered for a while and slowly said, that's right. This is the biggest challenge, the biggest crisis, and also the biggest opportunity that our clans will have to face in the last 100 years apart from Ao clan. Luo Kadi also put away his usual cynicism. Ao Xieyun took a deep breath and said, this is a fierce battle for my Ao clan. And it's also a revenge. It's not an opportunity. However, my Ao clan can give up everything in this battle. But we have to vent our anger. We must take revenge. Chu Yang insipidly said, this isn't just our opportunity. It's also the biggest opportunity for your Ao clan. Therefore, I suggest that you don't show up. It's not purely because of your Ao clan. There are other reasons. Other reasons? Ao Xieyun wrinkled his brows. Yes, your Ao clan is a big clan. How many direct descendants do you have in your generation? Chu Yang asked. There should be more than 100 people if you count the descendants of my uncles and other clans, Ao Xieyun replied. How many of them are outstanding? Chu Yang asked. Ao Xieyun seemed to have understood something. But he didn't hesitate and said, there are others besides me. He had already understood Chu Yang's meaning. He took a deep breath and said, Ancestor once said that Ao Xieyun is the strongest among the 7 tigers of the Ao clan. But everyone else can assume the position of the clan lord. And the Ao clan's reputation won't decline. Well, do you think that the remaining people will fight for the position of the clan lord if you die? Chu Yang insipidly said. That's inevitable. Ao Xieyun heaved a long sigh. He somewhat bitterly said, they are eyeing me covetously even now. They will fight to the death if I'm gone. The Ao clan would have been powerful for a while. But I'm afraid that its vitality would have been greatly damaged. So this is your opportunity. And it's also Ao clan's opportunity. Chu Yang insipidly said. But these disturbances can be quelled as long as I go back now. Ao Xieyun solemnly said. He suddenly had a thought of overturning his decision at this moment. Ao clan will be finished if you go back. Chu Yang's tone was still dull. Ao Xieyun was startled. But he immediately understood. He was in a daze for a long time. Then he muttered, that's right. Ao clan will be finished if I go back. It still exists now. But it will be destroyed by my hands sooner or later. Chu Yang nodded. Ao Xieyun dejectedly sat down. He then said in a low voice, don't tell me that I can only watch? Chu Yang deeply looked at him and said, if you don't watch now, you can only endure it in the future. Ao Xieyun remained silent. GMO and Luo Kadi were confused as they heard this. They asked Gu Duxing, what are they talking about? Why can't we understand anything? Gu Duxing and Dong Wushang looked at these two people and exposed an envious look. These two people didn't have the slightest desire for power. They didn't participate in the clan's struggle for fame and fortune. They were living an extremely relaxed life. A person's ambition is limitless. The 7 clan lords of the same generation of the same clan are the biggest crisis of this clan. Their ambition will slowly expand as they slowly gain strength. And AO clan will be divided into 7 clans when it reaches a certain extent. And it will be done for. So, it's best to expose them as soon as possible. Gu Duxing slowly said, "It's too complicated." GMO curled his lips and said, "That bastard Jiju almost knelt down in front of me and asked me to go back to be the clan lord. But I always run far away and ignore him." Dong Wushang sighed. "Ao Xie Yun can't go. He will stay in the Xie clan." "Tan Tan, what about you?" Chu Yang asked. "I will stay." Tan Tan considered for a while. Then he made a decision. "I feel that my spirit fluctuations are very strong recently. I will stay here. I will follow the Xie clan's operation. There shouldn't be any problem." Chu Yang looked at him worriedly and said, "All right. Du Xing needs to go back to the Gu clan. Wu Shang, GMO, and Kidi also need to go back to their respective clans. I want to go to the Mo clan to see Mo Tianji." Chu Yang said, "Bu Tong, you stay in the Xie clan. First, you have to keep an eye on Tan Tan. Second, you have to help Ao Xie Yun conceal his identity. Third, you have to wait for Xie Danqiong to come back. Then, you guys can discuss the operation with him." Rui Butong agreed. "But you have to remember." Chu Yang looked at Ao Xie Yun and Rui Butong. "First, you can't fall behind in your cultivation. Second, you can't touch the Xie clan. You have to wait until the all-out war starts in 3 days. Then, you can make a decision." Good. Ao Xie Yun's face revealed a contemplative look. "We will wait for your news." Chu Yang turned around. "There's no time to lose. Let's act immediately. The 5 of us can travel together for some time. We can also avoid a lot of things along the way." Chu Yang had said the last sentence somewhat meaningfully. It seemed to have some other meaning. Dong Wushang was silent for a while. Then he said, "Big brother, I want to act alone." Chu Yang's gaze focused. "Are you sure?" Dong Wushang took a deep breath and said, "I'm sure." Chu Yang looked at him with a complicated look in his eyes. He nodded and said, "Good. Be careful along the way." "Big brother, we might as well all act alone." Gu Duxing said lightly, "Traveling together is not conducive to cultivation. Besides, each of us has our own things to face. Although we can avoid a lot of trouble if we work together, some troubles can't be avoided. They will happen sooner or later. The sooner we solve them, the sooner we can get rid of our worries." Chu Yang was silent for a long time. Then he said, "But this journey is thousands of miles long. It's full of dangers. There's a big clan eyeing us covetously." "Big brother, have you forgotten that you single-handedly fought your way through thousands of miles in the lower 3 heavens?" Gu Duxing laughed heartily. Then he suddenly said solemnly, "Big brother, you have good intentions. But you can't always protect us like an old hen protecting its chicks. We will all be crippled. Everyone has their own heart knot and story. We also have our own destiny to face. Or, the so-called crisis is the brilliance of everyone's life." Gu Duxing looked at Chu Yang and said cautiously, "Big brother, we can't be together for a long time." Chu Yang was silent for a long time. Then he finally nodded and said, "I worry too much. This is the weakness of my character. Once we have something, we are afraid of losing it. But if we have it for a long time, we will lose that kind of passion. Forget it, forget it. I'll leave it to you guys." Gu Duxing straightened his body and said seriously, "Thank you, big brother." Chu Yang smiled and patted his shoulder. "Don't be so serious. I understand what you're saying." Everyone laughed. Chu Yang suddenly reflected on himself. Indeed, he had lost too much in his previous life. His loved ones, he had nothing. But this had created his success in this life. But it had also created another kind of extreme character in him. And that was, his desire to protect the people around him was too strong. He was afraid that something would happen to them, and it would be too late for regrets. He didn't want to lose what he had. This was a kind of responsibility. But it was also a drawback. For mediocre people, he was absolutely responsible. But, for geniuses, this kind of extreme responsibility was another kind of extreme irresponsibility. Chapter 602. However, the consequences of doing so would stifle the individuality of the brothers. People like Gu Duxing and Dong Wushang would never reach a higher level if they were to grow up under the protection of others. Although each of them would encounter a life and death crisis more than once after separating, they had to be separated. What Gu Duxing said was right. Everyone has their own wonderful life. Even if they were to die, Gu Duxing had deliberately mentioned this in such a chaotic time. He had the intention of using a mountain of knives and a sea of flames to gain experience. Good. Then we will go our separate ways. Chu Yang had already made up his mind. He smiled and said, "Well, I will go and see Aobua first. Then I will go back to the clan from Aobua's place." GMO excitedly shook his eyebrows. Luo Kadi ridiculed. Looking at Xie Dan Feng is equivalent to looking at your Aobua. In other words, it's a matter of the banquet table and the underworld. Your Aobua is fierce, but it's still slightly inferior to sister-in-law Tan. That's not necessarily true. Ribu Tong immediately retorted with righteous indignation. Aobua is much fiercer than sister-in-law Tan. Just that small kick is as thick as third brother Ji's waist. Everyone immediately laughed. GMO glared at them. Then he rolled his eyes. No one knew what he had thought of. He pulled Chu Yang to the side sneakily and asked mysteriously, "Big brother, that medicine of yours, is it useful for normal people?" "Medicine?" Chu Yang looked at him confusedly. "Oh." GMO tilted his head and looked. Then he moved closer to Chu Yang's ear. "Is that the medicine you used to treat Luo Kudi's illness? Is it useful for me?" "It is said that it is useful. It can double your strength." Chu Yang looked at him vigilantly. "What do you want to do?" GMO immediately jumped up excitedly. Big brother, give me a bottle. Give me a bottle. I want to completely subdue that tigress." Chu Yang frowned. "No." GMO's face fell. He begged, "Big brother?" Then he begged and winked at him. Chu Yang shivered all over. "Here you go." Then he took out a small jade bottle and handed it to GMO. "You first, try it, cough cough." "Huh? Understood?" "Understood. Understood." GMO beamed with delight. He placed the jade bottle in his bosom like it was a precious treasure. His eyes were shining with longing. He turned his head and saw that everyone was looking at him suspiciously. GMO snorted, and his face immediately darkened. He coughed a few times, cupped his fists, and saluted everyone. Then he said with a serious face, "Brothers, since everyone is moving separately, I won't be going the same way as you. So I'll go first." "Ha ha." As he spoke, he put down his hand and rubbed his crotch without leaving a trace. With a whoosh, he dashed out. Chu Yang shook his head. "Are you that impatient? Look at how useless he's." Then another one jumped out impatiently. "Boss, brothers, I'll take my leave too." Luo Kadi was laughing like a Maitreya Buddha. This guy had been setting up his tent for several days, and he was getting more and more uncomfortable. Now that GMO had left, he jumped out on his own. "Little Lu." Before Chu Yang could finish his sentence, Luo Kadi had already disappeared. From afar, a burst of excited and lewd laughter could be heard. Chu Yang and the others had black lines on their faces. Gu Duxing was moved. Thinking that he was already a sword emperor, and thinking of his promise with Sister Xiao Miao, he couldn't help but feel a fire in his heart. He wanted to go home as soon as possible. Licking his lips, he said, "Boss, I'll take my leave too." Chu Yang looked at him strangely. He smiled and said, Sister Xiao Miao made you unable to control yourself?" Gu Duxing's cold face suddenly turned into a ripe persimmon. Even his scalp became hot. His face and neck turned red. Just, he wanted to say, no, but he couldn't lie to his heart. Finally, he said angrily, "Let's go." With a whoosh, he turned into a ball of sword light. "Boss, don't worry. I'll go too." Dong Wushang's eyes flashed with passion. Wushang, you have to be careful. The one Chu Yang was most worried about was Dong Wushang. Yes, I understand. Dong Wushang nodded deeply and said, I'll live to meet you guys. Dong Wushang turned around, carrying the black saber on his back. His strong back view walked out step by step. Ao Xie Yun watched everyone leave. He couldn't help but sigh and say, the relationship between you brothers is really good. He smiled enviously, each of you can find a reason to dilute each other's sorrow when parting. This is only a small matter. But it can be seen that each of you has taken each other to heart. No matter what, you're always thinking of your brothers. This is what brothers are like. Chu Yang looked outside the door. He then said in a somewhat absent-minded manner, Ao Xie Yun, your Ao clan wouldn't have any internal and external troubles if 2 of your 7 clan brothers could be like this. Ao Xie Yun smiled bitterly, even if there is one. I can't get it even in my dreams. They only have eyes for the position of young clan lord under my butt. They don't care about me, Ao Xie Yun. Chu Yang silently said, a big clan is the same as an imperial family. The emperor will feel a lot more comfortable if only one person is a genius. But if several emperors are geniuses, and all of them have the wisdom to bring peace to the country, and they don't want to be left out, then it will be a sign of decline even if all of the emperors are geniuses. 7 geniuses have appeared in your Ao clan. Perhaps the elders of your clan are very gratified. They think that your Ao clan can stand tall and never fall from now on. But I want to say that it's the opposite. Your Ao clan is already on the verge of such a decline. Ao Xie Yun, I'm afraid that your Ao clan's downfall would have been imminent if you hadn't hardened your heart and restrained it early on. Chu Yang said softly. Ao Xie Yun was frightened. He couldn't help but deeply bow. I've learned something. Well, I'm also leaving. I'm going to see what Mo Tianji is up to. Chu Yang waved his hand. Xie Dan Qiong should be coming back from Ao clan soon. You two should be able to confirm many things by chatting. Ao Xie Yun nodded with a serious look on his face. Tan Tan, you must take care of yourself. Chu Yang walked out of the door. He didn't turn his head back, and slowly said. Tan Tan nodded with all his might. He knew what Chu Yang meant by, take care. Perhaps, only he and Chu Yang could understand the meaning of these words. This take care wasn't take care of your life. Moreover, Tan Tan, you must upgrade Butong's strength. Chu Yang flew up after he finished saying this. He then left behind a few words. Say goodbye to the people of the Xie clan on my behalf. I'm leaving first. Ao Xie Yun looked at Chu Yang's departing figure. He secretly swore in his heart, not only Rui Butong's strength, I must also upgrade my strength. He didn't notice that Rui Butong's expression seemed as if he was about to cry after Chu Yang had finished speaking. Rui Butong found out that Ao Xie Yun was going to participate in the special training. He immediately became spirited. Are you sure? Of course. Ao Xie Yun replied boldly. That's great. Rui Butong hugged him. He was crying in his heart. Finally, someone has come to court death. Ao Xie Yun felt that something was wrong. He asked tentatively, you won't cripple them, right? Tan Tan smiled honestly. He said honestly, haha, it's all done in practice. It's very effective. Ao Xie Yun was relieved. Looking at this guy's honest face, he didn't seem to understand the ways of the world. He probably wouldn't go too far. Ao Xie Yun regretted his first morning of the special training less than a third of the time. Tan Tan, this bastard, actually stripped the 2 of them naked and tied them up to make them cultivate. Moreover, he had a strict goal. If they couldn't reach the goal, he would smear honey on their small breasts and throw them into the flowers. Ao Xie Yun broke down after only 1 round. From this moment on, Ao Xie Yun suddenly realized that he actually had such great potential. When he really went all out to cultivate, it turned out to be very fast. In the afternoon, he still cultivated like that. But Ao Xie Yun actually only used 2/3 of the time to complete the training goal. Then he took pleasure in Rui Butong's misfortune. Rui Butong was trapped. His small breasts were dripping with honey as he was thrown into the flowers and screaming. Tan Tan's training method was very monotonous. It was undoubtedly much more boring than Chu Yang's. But it had incomparably good results. The second day was still the same training. Ao Xie Yun, the Grand Duke of a great clan in the Three Heavens, couldn't help but tremble when he saw Tan Tan's honest face. His face turned green. Tan Tan's most powerful words were, "If you can't meet my requirements today, I will throw you naked into the flowers. Then I will let Dan Feng bring her sisters to visit and practice painting." When Tan Tan said these words, his smile was very simple and honest. It was very pure. There was some expectation in his eyes. Ao Xie Yun and Rui Butong's hair stood on end. Ao Xie Yun went to get more. He had already scolded himself 1,000 times in 2 days. What special training? I really want to cry but have no tears. The news of the O clan's destruction spread throughout the Three Heavens like a hurricane. Dozens of clans were stupid. They wanted to make a move. Ao clan had found out that the O clan had joined forces with other clans to hunt down Ao Xie Yun a few days before the news of the O clan's destruction came. So, the clan had an urgent discussion. They hadn't reached a conclusion when the news of the O clan's destruction came. The O clan was the only clan that the Ao clan had scruples about. Clan Lord Ao Tianxing had made a decision now that the powerful enemy was gone. The Ao clan had set out in full force under his command. The troops had left in a single file and had scattered into the Jianghu. Blood must be repaid in blood. Everyone in the alliance of the O clan was in danger after they found out that the O clan had been destroyed. They had banded together to protect themselves. At the same time, every clan had tried their best to send people out to look for reinforcements. In fact, however, the Jianghu was in turmoil because of the 3 words Heavenly Armament Pavilion. What kind of organization is this? It has the strength to destroy the O clan overnight? How strong is it? You don't know about this. Come, listen to me. Emotionji had jumped up from his chair when he had received this news. He had rushed out barefoot and had shouted loudly. He had immediately invited Dong Wulei and the others over. This big storm had truly taken shape at this point. The power of this storm had affected everyone in the Three Heavens. The next step was to carefully plan. 2 chapters for today, to be continued. Chapter 603. The first thing to do after entering Jianghu is to find out if Ao Xie Yun is dead or alive. If he is dead, bring his body back and take revenge. If he is alive, bring him back and take revenge. These were the words that Ao Tianxing had said when his younger brothers had set out. There was only one thing. Ao Xie Yun must be brought back regardless of whether he was dead or alive. Moreover, the people who had attacked Ao Xie Yun must pay the price no matter what. If any of you dare to play any petty tricks, when you come back, what awaits you is your cultivation base being crippled. Don't think that we don't know what you are thinking. This was Ao Tianxing's warning to his nephew. The troops had already set out. Ao Tianxing asked, "Is Master Xie feeling better?" "Master Xie has already left." The servant reported, "Master Xie hasn't fully recovered yet. However, when he saw the current state of our Ao clan, he proposed to leave. Before he left, he said that he would inevitably make the clan master sad if he said goodbye to him in the current situation. Therefore, he left directly." Ao Tianxing nodded. His heart was in a mess. Although Xie Dan Qiong left without saying goodbye, he was indeed considerate of his state of mind. After the arrangements were made, he went to the inner room. Then he entered a secret passage. The passage went downwards. After walking for an unknown distance, he arrived in front of a strange underground stone room. "Old ancestor, why did you insist on sending them out during this turmoil in Jianghu?" Ao Tianxing was somewhat puzzled and also somewhat resentful. There was a big room on the opposite side. The quality of the white crystal was very high. It was almost transparent. Looking in from the outside, one could almost see 3 vague figures. "You think that Xie Yun is definitely not dead, right?" After a long time, an old voice came from inside. Ao Tianxing said, We have already inquired about all kinds of information. Although the O clan, Black Devil clan, and other clans chased after Xie Yun, they didn't succeed. There are also rumors that Xie Yun was rescued by King of Hell Chu. I believe that these are not baseless rumors. The opposite side was silent. Suddenly, a long sigh was heard. Then, another voice slowly said, "The three of us have been in seclusion here for 50 years. If we can't break through the barrier of 5th grade monarch level in a few more years, our lifetime achievements will stop here." He paused and said, "In other words, if we can't break through, the three of us will die within 20 years. His lifespan has reached its end." Ao Tianxing widened his eyes in shock. How could this be? We definitely won't be able to protect the Ao clan for eternity. The future of the Ao clan lies in the hands of the younger generation. Another voice rang out coldly, "However, if you're disobedient and ambitious, you won't be able to use it no matter how capable you are. 7 geniuses have appeared in their generation. Ao clan is elated. They think that there is hope for their rise. However, the three of us are worried day and night." The cold voice said, "You must know that with a genius comes ambition and the desire for power. If Ao Xian isn't dead yet, let him use his methods to subdue these people, subdue them, or kill them. If he died, he would let these people fight amongst themselves. Even if there are losses because of this, it is inevitable. It is better than a split in the future. But if Ao Xian dies in their hands, there's nothing to say." The old ancestor who was the first to speak said indifferently, "This is an aristocratic family. There is no such thing as fairness. Everyone's wings are strong. If you want to rise, you have to show your ability." Ao Tianxing opened his mouth. There was a pained expression on his face. 7 outstanding younger brothers. How many of them would be left if this happened? The three of us won't interfere in any case. We'll just wait for the result. As for you, you can also use your own methods. However, the guards of the clan master and the emperor-level experts can't be touched. The Black Star Guards and the Proud Eagle assassination team can't be touched. This is the foundation. It cannot be shaken. This is an opportunity. After this, the strength of the Ao clan will be greatly damaged. It may be quiet for a period of time. However, it will become more cohesive." The old ancestor said, "Tianxing, you must remember that the power that can make a clan rise isn't strength in numbers. It isn't strength in numbers. It isn't strength in the clan. It is cohesion." Although the Ao clan is now a big clan and is ranked first in the 3 heavens, it is too scattered. Ao Tianxing retreated with a heavy heart. "Xian, where are you? Are you still alive?" Outside the gate of the Ao clan, a group of people was ready to set off. There were 3 youngsters with warm smiles on their faces. All of them had handsome faces and elegant manners. They were tall and slender, looking like trees in the wind. They were the great dukes of the Ao clan. "Qin Yun, you must work hard. You'll make a contribution if you find Big Brother." "Ha," a youngster smiled amiably. "Meng Yun, you must also work hard. Perhaps this great contribution will be yours." Ao Qin Yun smiled modestly. The brothers were talking and laughing gently. They were amiably facing each other. However, a cold light would occasionally flash in each other's eyes. It was so ferocious and frightening. Everyone knew that this was an opportunity for them. A once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. "Let's go." It wasn't known who had spoken these words. But the impatient crowd dispersed. They quickly mounted their horses and started to laugh loudly. Their long robes fluttered in the wind. They formed a long line under the blue sky and green grass. "They've returned." Mo Tianji looked at the 2 people in front of him. Only the 3 of them were present this time. Dong Wulei, Luo Kuwu, and Mo Tianji. This was an extremely secluded tea room. "I believe that you've all received the news. The Heavenly Armament Pavilion has returned and destroyed the O clan's lair. The remaining forces of the O clan had been reduced to less than 20 people in the alliance at this time. There's no need to fear them." Mo Tianji's face was calm and collected. He slowly said, "King of Hell Chu's thunderous attack has thoroughly solved my biggest problem. The O clan is the reason why we haven't launched our attack yet. It's also the biggest reason why we haven't launched our attack yet. Adventure. Emotionji insipidly said, "This is what I meant when I said, adventurer. Only King of Hell Chu could have done such a flawless job." Dong Wulei and Luoku Wu didn't speak. They knew that this wasn't the main point that Emotionji was talking about. Everyone knew this. It wasn't a secret. "I want to remind you." Emotionji's eyes flickered. He gently tapped the table with his hand. It seemed that he didn't know what to say. But he eventually said, "We need to be united. We'll be consigned to eternal damnation if there's any civil war. Ji Zhu, Xie Dan Qiong, and the Gu clan don't have any problems. There's only the two of you." It seems that the enemy has fallen into a disadvantageous position. But you must know that the real strength of the Tian clan and the Black Devil clan hasn't been revealed yet. And the Tu clan is still hiding. Emotionji's eyes swept around. He looked at the two with his sharp eyes. "I believe that both of you understand." Dong Wulei and Luoku Wu were lost in thought. A long while passed. Then, Luoku Wu slowly said, "I've never thought about this." "You don't. But it doesn't mean that your subordinates don't." Emotionji snorted. He then looked at the two of them. "I need to let you know that Luo Kudi is already a king-level expert. He's half a foot into the emperor-level expert. Dong Wushang is now an emperor-level expert. Moreover, he's a pure saber emperor." Emotionji looked at Dong Wulei and heavily said, "Our big clan needs such strength at the moment." Dong Wulei's complexion changed. He slowly nodded and said in a heavy voice, "Don't worry. I know what to do." Emotionji deeply looked at him and slowly said, "I hope so." Dong Wulei and Luoku Wu rode their horses out of the Mo clan's residence. They were speechless. Both of them heaved a long sigh. A long while passed. Then, Luoku Wu cupped his hands in obeisance. Then, he turned his horse around and left. He didn't say anything. Dong Wulei looked at the grass under his feet. His expression was somewhat frozen. It was complicated and contradictory. The muscles on his face were twitching and recovering. His eyebrows were tightly wrinkled. He trusted the reins of his horse to move forward. A long while passed. Then he let out a long sigh and muttered, "Saber Emperor? Saber Emperor?" A radiant light flashed in the eyes of the four old men behind him. A long while passed. Then, Dong Wulei clamped his legs on the horse's belly. The horse let out a long neigh and galloped away. It left behind a mess of thoughts. The alliance of the O clan, Tian clan, Tu clan, and the other clans was in a gloomy atmosphere. The atmosphere was so heavy that it almost made people unable to breathe. They had just received a message. The Tu clan's various forces are under attack by the Ao clan. The Tian clan's various forces are under attack by the Ao clan. The Li clan is under attack by the Ao clan. The Zhao clan is under attack by the Ao clan. These attacks included military attacks, commercial blockades, shops embezzlement, and even, their partners had been warned and attacked. It was an all-round and three-dimensional attack. Two of the Black Devil clan's branches had been uprooted by the Ao clan. The troops of the Ao clan had swept across the boundless earth like a raging tide. And internal strife had arisen on their side even before the war had started. The Meng clan had been uprooted by these people and had been exterminated. The O clan didn't exist anymore. Only O Chengwu and O Dushao were left. They were leading 20 or so battered soldiers. They were equivalent to 2 generals without an army. The troops dispatched by the Ao clan are respectively led by Ao Qingyun, Ao Qingyun, Ao Mengyun, Ao Yuyun, Ao Fengyun, and Ao Langyun. Tian Bu Hui gently knocked on the table and slowly said, "The revenge of the Ao clan has already begun." In addition, the Mo clan, Xie clan, Ji clan, Luo clan, Dong clan, and Gu clan are also ready to make trouble. This matter has developed into a situation that we didn't want to happen. And it has reached an extremely bad situation. Everyone, please tell me your thoughts on how to deal with it. For a long time, no one spoke. The Black Devil young master coldly snorted. Tian Bu Hui suddenly raised his head. and looked at the Black Devil young master with an ice-cold gaze. I need to remind everyone that this is a critical moment for our survival. So, any disunity will lead to our destruction. Therefore, I ask everyone to be patient and control your mouths. He turned his head. Brother Tu, how long will it take for the promised reinforcements to arrive? Tu Qianhao confidently smiled and said, My father and the old ancestor have gone there personally. So, we should have news in a few days. Tianbu Hui slowly nodded and sighed, I hope, the sooner the better. To be continued. Chapter 604. The spokesperson had been Du Shao, who had organized this alliance. But it had been changed to Tianbu Hui now. It was obvious that the O clan no longer had any right to speak in this alliance after their clan had been destroyed. Moreover, the people of the Heavenly Armament Pavilion have separated. They are rushing back to their respective clans. Tianbu Hui calmed down and said, We can't let these people go back. First, these people have ruined our plan. So, we must take revenge for this blood feud. Second, they will use their understanding of us to attack us after they go back. Tianbu Hui's eyes narrowed into slits. Then, a cold light shot out from them. Who knows what that bastard Meng Luo said to them? It would be bad if he revealed our troop deployment and operation plan. We can't take this risk. Therefore, stopping these people is our top priority right now. Tianbu Hui and young Black Devil looked at each other and said, Our O clan is responsible for King of Hell Chu. Du Shao clenched his teeth. His eyes were bloodshot. Both father and son had fainted on the spot when they had received the news that their clan had been destroyed. In their hearts, King of Hell Chu was the most hated person in the world. In fact, there was no one like him. Well, do you want me to send a few more people to you? Tianbu Hui asked symbolically. No need. Du Shao gnashed his teeth in anger. We will return with Chu Yang's head if we can kill him this time. But we will also leave our lives behind if we can't kill King of Hell Chu. Everything will be over. Tianbu Hui's eyes flashed. He then nodded with a smile. Brother O will succeed. Du Shao snorted. He had heard the sarcasm in Tianbu Hui's words. But he couldn't care less about this at this time. Our Tu clan will be responsible for Gu Duxing. Tu Qianhao was still brooding over his last fight with Gu Duxing. He wanted to take this opportunity to kill Gu Duxing and announce to the world that I, Tu Qianhao, am the #1 expert of the younger generation. I heard that Gu Duxing has already broken through to Sword Emperor realm. Young Black Devil seemed to have unintentionally said something. Tu Qianhao, what grade of king level expert are you? Tu Qianhao's face turned red. He then growled, even if he's the Sword Monarch, I want him dead this time. Tianbu Hui shot a warning glance at the Black Devil young master. Young Heimo laughed mischievously and said, If that's the case, then I'll just kill Dong Wushang. Kill Dong Wushang? Tu Qianhao snorted. He's a Saber Emperor. What grade of king level are you? The Black Demon young master glared at him, and a cold light burst out from his eyes. Tu Qianhao, do you want to die? Everyone hurriedly tried to smooth things over. Our Li clan will rob and kill GMO. The Li clan master said. Zhao clan, kill Luo Kadi. The patriarch of Zhao clan declared. Don't forget to reorganize the troops at your rear. Tianbu Hui nodded and reminded them. Then he said, Li Xiong Tu once owed me a huge favor. This time I will personally go and look for Li Xiong Tu. Everyone's eyes lit up. If they could rope in the Li clan as well, everyone would have a much greater chance of success. There's no time to lose. Let's act now. Gu Duxing rushed through the mountain forest. His heart was burning with passion. He knew that there would be enemies along the way to intercept him. But he was confident that he could break through all the obstructions and rush back. He would rush to Sister Xiao Miao's side. Then he would say to her, I want to marry you. I want to marry you now. You don't have to be afraid of anything with me by your side from now on. Gu Duxing didn't even feel the boredom of traveling alone for thousands of miles because of such a passionate mood. Looking at the scenery along the way, the scenery was also very beautiful. However, Gu Duxing didn't relax his vigilance because of this. He knew that this would be the best opportunity if the enemies wanted to eliminate him. And he also needed this kind of experiential training. Therefore, Gu Duxing wasn't the least bit surprised when 3 people suddenly appeared in front of him in the forest to block his path. He gently pulled out the black dragon sword and coldly asked, "Are you 2 Qianhao's men?" The 3 people opposite him didn't say a word and rushed forward. Gu Duxing coldly snorted. He turned over and leaped up. His body bent in the air and then straightened up. He looked like a sword that had been bent and then suddenly straightened up. The sword light scattered everywhere. The 3 people separated and then gathered together to block Gu Duxing. Then they started to fight. Gu Duxing's body rushed past them and turned into a black lightning. He flew out of the encirclement of the 3 people and disappeared into the forest without looking back. He disappeared with a schwa sound and left behind a sentence from afar, "Not 2 Qianhao's men." The 3 people blocking the path stood there in a daze. Suddenly, a thin line of blood spurted out of their throats. Then, a column of blood shot their heads into the air. The 3 people fell down at the same time. Gu Duxing had killed 3 king-level experts with 1 sword and had escaped far away. After a long time, a rustling sound came from the forest, and a dozen people came out. They looked at the 3 corpses. The white-clothed youth in the middle softly sighed and muttered, "What a terrifying sword emperor." The few people behind him had dignified faces and said, "Young master, if the heavenly armament pavilion has such strength, I'm afraid the plan will be very difficult." The white-clothed youth slightly tilted his head and pondered. Then he insipidly said, "What if you guys fight him?" The people behind him looked at each other. They were silent for a while. Then one of them said, "If it's one-on-one, I'm afraid that no one will be his match except for Big Brother." The white-clothed youth's body suddenly shook. "The lowest among you guys is a 2nd-grade Emperor-level expert, and the highest is a 5th-grade Emperor-level expert. Why can't you beat a 1st-grade Sword Emperor?" His voice was full of disbelief. "If it's a competition of cultivation, each of us can fight him to death. But he's a Sword Emperor. A Sword Emperor is completely different from an ordinary Emperor-level expert." An old man with 3 strands of long beard said in a deep voice, "Even if I attack him, I can only defeat him. I can't kill him." The white-clothed youth was silent for a while. Then he said, "Send a message to 3rd Brother and say, Gu Duxing can't be a match for anyone who isn't an Emperor-level expert." The old man behind him shook. I lost 3 king-level experts. So, 3rd Brother must be very happy. But I want to make him lose a few Emperor-level experts this time." The white-clothed youth smiled warmly and said, "Ao Qing Yun and I have joined forces for the time being. But that guy is hiding in the 2nd level. He wants to consume our strength. Humph humph." He waved his hand and said, "Bury the corpses on the spot. Let's go." He then turned around and said, "Our clan has come out this time to avenge Ao Xie Yun. But it's only a convenient reason. So, it's better to take advantage of this chaos in the Jianghu and unify the Jianghu. Survival of the fittest will happen in this process. Gu Duxing can't be taken. Then what about the other paths?" He softly muttered and said, "Who's Ao Feng Yun in the heavens?" This youth was Ao clan's young master, Ao Feng Yun. Everyone thought that he was dealing with the Tian clan, Li clan, and the other clans. But no one could have imagined that this ambitious youth would come here. "Young master, this old man thinks that we should prioritize the clan's affairs. I'm afraid that someone will get the upper hand if we complicate things like this." That long-bearded old man slightly sighed and advised, "The chaos in the 3 heavens can't be stopped. The war among the big clans has already begun. No one can stop it now. We won't make a move on those clans. But someone else will. And our top priority now is to nibble away at them from the periphery. We'll observe little by little. We'll strengthen ourselves while we watch others weaken. This is the way of the king." Ao Feng Yun insipidly said, "But Gu Duxing is so sharp. He lost 3 king-level experts just to test the waters. This is beyond my expectations. He turned around and left. But this is better. We'll wait until Gu Du Xing returns to the clan. We'll put pressure on the Gu clan and make the entire Gu clan come over to seek refuge. A group of people followed him and disappeared into the forest. A long time passed. Then, a figure flashed out of the forest with a schwa sound. It was Gu Du Xing who had left. It turned out that he had quietly sneaked back after he had left. So, it's the people of the AO clan. I was wondering why this attack was so strange. Gu Du Xing's face was as cold as steel. He disdainfully muttered to himself, "A mere AO Feng Yun wants to put pressure on the entire Gu clan? But I'll wait for you to put pressure on them. Consider this a big gift for AO Xie Yun." I heard that there's someone waiting for me ahead? Gu Du Xing frowned. Is the AO clan crazy? They're making an example out of me at this time? He stood up and left through the forest. He walked forward for another 500 miles. Suddenly, someone in the forest said faintly, "Is that Gu Du Xing of the Gu clan?" Gu Du Xing frowned. He finally saw the person who was waiting for him. He stopped and shouted, "Who is it?" The forest was silent. Two figures quietly appeared from both sides. They wore loose robes with big sleeves. Their gazes were cold. Two Emperor-level experts. Gu Du Xing's pupils shrank. Two Emperor-level experts had indeed appeared. "Gu Du Xing, I've come here today to bestow upon you a great fortune." The person on the right was expressionless. He said indifferently, "Join us, and I'll guarantee that your Gu clan will be safe and sound." The person on the left smiled mischievously, "If you don't, the Gu clan will be wiped out in an instant." Gu Du Xing's sword-like eyebrows suddenly rose. His murderous aura surged out violently. He didn't say a word, but his body emitted a biting cold sword aura. It was as if he had turned into a heaven-shaking divine sword at this moment. His whole body emitted a light that made people not dare to look up at him. His right hand pressed on the sword hilt at his waist. His 5 fingers slowly closed. The black dragon sword suddenly let out an excited sword cry. At the same time, the sword sheaths at the waists of the two people on the other side also let out a crisp sword cry. It was gentle and respectful. It was as if they had seen the emperor's officials. They were kneeling down and performing the 3 kowtows ceremony. The two people on the other side suddenly changed. They held onto their sword hilts and stared coldly at Gu Du Xing. "You're not willing?" Gu Du Xing snorted coldly. The black dragon sword left its sheath. In the next moment, he had already turned into a sword light. He had already killed 3 people without knowing. Now, 2 more wouldn't make a difference. He didn't say a word from beginning to end. To the dead, what difference did it make whether he spoke or not? The sword light was like a dragon. Chapter 605. You don't know how to appreciate favors. The two people on the opposite side hadn't expected that Gu Du Xing would attack without saying a word. So, they shouted angrily at the same time, and pulled out their swords to meet him. Gu Du Xing snorted. His body suddenly accelerated, and he finally opened his mouth. Then, he coldly shouted, "I am the Emperor of 10,000 swords." His body suddenly turned into a wisp of flowing light. Those 2 Emperor-level experts were originally full of confidence. They thought that they were both second-grade Emperor-level experts. So, wouldn't it be easy for them to deal with a guy who had just broken through to the Emperor level? A sense of contempt rose in their hearts when Gu Du Xing moved. They thought, is he a sword emperor? He is full of vigor. But his speed is too slow. However, they didn't expect that Gu Du Xing would suddenly accelerate in the air as soon as this thought arose in their minds. Both of them were startled at the same time. So, they quickly changed their way of fighting the enemy. They moved from left and right to the front. This was their best joint attack method. One in the front would block and the other would kill. This method had always been successful in every endeavor. However, Gu Du Xing coldly said 5 words like a monarch descending to the world. "I am the Emperor of 10,000 swords." The two almost laughed out loud. "You are the Emperor of 10,000 swords with this speed?" Don't you think that the wind will cut your tongue? However, both of them were immediately horrified. That was because Gu Duxing's body had suddenly accelerated for the second time after he had shouted these 5 words. Moreover, this speed was several times faster than his previous speed. The two of them only had enough time to block with their swords. Then they heard a crack sound. Gu Duxing was like a hurricane mixed with a thunderstorm. He had already rushed past the two of them. He didn't even turn his head. He brought along a sharp whistling sound as he quickly disappeared into the forest behind the two of them. A rumbling sound echoed. 70 or 80 big trees fell down where Gu Duxing had passed through several hundred feet behind them. Dust filled the sky and covered the direction. The two of them remained motionless. A long time passed. The one in the front tried to move his hand. It seemed that he didn't have any problem. So, why did I feel cold just now? Therefore, he turned his head to look at his brother and conveniently asked, "Are you okay?" The emperor-level expert behind him couldn't help but smile and said, "He is only fast." But before he could finish his sentence, his eyes suddenly widened. This was because he clearly saw that his elder brother, who was originally facing away from him, was about to turn around and talk to him. Moreover, he had already said, "Are you all right?" Then his brother twisted his neck to look back, but he clearly saw that when his brother twisted his neck to look back, only the top half of his neck moved, but the bottom half of his neck didn't move. He just twisted his neck like that. The two halves of the neck were like a millstone that had fallen together. Someone pushed the top, causing the head to turn. However, the millstone itself did not move. At the same time as he turned, a faint red line appeared at the joint of the upper and lower neck. He stared at his elder brother in shock and raised his hand. That emperor expert turned his head and looked at his brother. He frowned and asked in a puzzled manner, "What happened to me?" He had said the first 3 words when a pillar of blood suddenly pushed his head up in the air. Then, he said the last word with an astonished look on his face, "Are you angry?" The emperor-level expert behind him screamed in alarm. Then, he felt that his neck was sticky. He touched it with his hand and couldn't help but scream in fear. He then lowered his head to look. But, blood suddenly spurted out of his neck when he lowered his head. His head fiercely rushed forward, and his eyes saw a big tree coming towards him. Puff! His head heavily knocked against the tree. His train of thought came to an end at this point. These two are extremely unlucky. They wouldn't have been killed so quickly even if they weren't Gu Duxing's match with their real cultivation and martial strength. In fact, it would have been very likely that both sides would have been injured if they had fought for a while. Moreover, they wouldn't have had to die. But, they misunderstood one after another. And these misunderstandings have cost their lives. It was Ao Qingyun and Ao Fengyun's decision to deal with Gu Duxing. The Ao brothers have come out this time. Each of them is full of ambition. How can they replace Ao Xieyun's position if they don't accomplish something? Therefore, the brothers didn't say it clearly. But they had set their sights on the Jianghu. This is a big pie in the sky. Moreover, it's a God-given opportunity. This is a chaotic situation. I will become the next clan lord of Ao clan as long as I can obtain enough benefits and show enough means. And this is nothing more than strength. Power. Therefore, I must rope in some forces for my own use. And I can't look for the O clan alliance. They're my enemies. So, I will be scolded to death by my ancestors even if I succeed. Moreover, the clans outside the core of this storm don't feel that it's urgent. So, they aren't in a hurry. So, I would only look for them to wrangle. Therefore, I can only choose one clan from Xie clan, Gu clan, Luo clan, and Dong clan. And Gu clan is the weakest among these clans. In other words, Gu clan is in the most dangerous situation in this Jianghu storm. Therefore, Gu clan must look for a backer. The so-called alliance won't be of any help if they are attacked. Therefore, I must first pull Gu clan over. Gu clan is the weakest clan. But it's not a weak force for me. In fact, it's equivalent to double my strength. Moreover, it's a good start if I succeed in my first attempt. Ao Qingyun and Ao Fengyun are fighting both openly and covertly. But they are on the same side in general. That's because these two are blood-related brothers. Therefore, these two brothers hit it off and decided to deal with Gu clan. They will succeed once. And the key to deal with Gu clan is Gu Duxing. That's because Gu Duxing is basically the master of Gu clan at present. Moreover, Gu Duxing has a special identity. He is the second master of Heavenly Armament Pavilion. And there's a good chance that Gu Duxing could pull the entire Heavenly Armament Pavilion under his command if he joins them. At that time, the prospects will be very good. Therefore, these two brothers didn't discuss much before they decided to attack from the front and the back. They would capture Gu Duxing first. Then, they would talk slowly. However, they didn't expect that Ao Fengyun would dispatch 3 king-level experts. And they were all killed by Gu Duxing in one move. This made Ao Fengyun embarrassed. Moreover, they followed the principle of enjoy your blessings and bear your misfortune together. Everyone will suffer misfortune together. Therefore, they spread the news. Strictly speaking, there's nothing wrong with this statement. Emperor-level expert is Gu Duxing because he is a sword emperor at present. So, a low-level emperor-level expert is dispatched to deal with him. Emperor-level experts are different from each other. And this statement had seriously misled Ao Qingyun and the 2 emperor-level experts who were now dead. Emperor-level experts can't deal with him. This means that emperor-level experts can deal with him. Ao Qingyun felt relieved when he saw this. Emperor-level experts can deal with him. So, wouldn't I be able to capture him alive if I send 2 emperor-level experts? Therefore, the 2 emperor-level experts came out to rob him with full confidence after they were misled. They were misled for the second time when they saw Gu Duxing, so young. Then, Gu Duxing moved and misled them for the third time, too slow. Therefore, the 2 of them looked down on him. So, they naturally weren't willing to go all out. But, who would have thought that Gu Duxing would accelerate again at this time? And he would accelerate again. His speed had increased to the extent that they couldn't react in the blink of an eye. The Black Dragon Sword has become one of the best divine weapons in the world after it has been modified by Chu Yang. And their heads have been chopped off. The 2 Emperor-level experts didn't even have the time to unleash their domains. And they died in a daze. It could be said that they had died an extremely wrong death. And they had died in an extremely aggrieved manner. Gu Duxing had already disappeared without a trace. Ao Qingyun had come out with the people who had been lying in ambush. He was still faintly angry in his heart. He wanted to ask, 2 Emperor-level experts were here. So, why did they let him go? Why didn't they stop him? Then, he saw the scene of these 2 heads falling down. This pampered Ao Qingyun was struck dumb like a wooden chicken. He only felt that his brain was in chaos. How can this be? 2 Emperor-level experts were dealing with one person. And their heads were chopped off so neatly. In fact, I didn't even feel anything. How can I speak when my heads have been chopped off? How can I still move? What a fast sword. The corner of an old man's eyes twitched beside him. He had a feeling of fear and trepidation. And he felt a lingering fear in his heart at the same time. This old man was a 7th-grade Emperor-level expert. It could be said that he was one of the few experts in the upper 3 heavens. But he asked himself honestly, I would have been seriously injured if I hadn't been misled by the words Emperor-level expert is a match for him. And I would have been caught off guard by this sword attack if I hadn't been killed. Moreover, the enemy could have calmly left. This sword attack could have severed the human body's meridians. And it could have left the meridians of the human body in their original state of healing. And it could have continued to provide the body with vitality. To what extent is this fast? And to what extent is this sword sharp? Third young master, we can't deal with this Gu Duxing. This old man hung his head dejectedly. This old man suggests that we shouldn't make an enemy out of him. This man isn't even 20 years old. And he has reached such a realm. So, if we make an enemy out of him, and if he can grow up, Ao Qingyun didn't think this way. He pondered and said, who do you mean to say that he can become a monarch-level expert? or a saint-level expert? Saint-level expert, it's hard to say. However, becoming a monarch-level expert isn't difficult for him. That old man hesitated for a moment. Then, he replied with uncertainty. So, wouldn't we have a subordinate who is at least a monarch-level expert if we can subdue him? Ao Qingyun's eyes lit up. A subordinate of a monarch-level expert? Subdue him? That old man was startled. Is the third young master still thinking about this? Can't he understand what I mean? It's very likely that Ao clan will be destroyed if we offend such a powerful enemy. I obviously know the pros and cons of this. But a person can always think of a way. Even a supreme-level expert has a weakness. Let alone an insignificant sword emperor? Ao Qingyun waved his hand disapprovingly. A man will always have conditions that he can't resist. The old man forced a smile. He touched his nose and no longer spoke. He thought, you must be able to afford such conditions first. Chapter 606. Go and look for old master. That bastard is purely trying to trick us. Ao Qingyun's complexion changed. He finally remembered this matter and said, that bastard said something about emperor-level experts being a match for him. But he made me lose 2 great experts. This is preposterous. The old man forced a smile and thought, you are his competitor. Who else would he trick if not you? Ao Fengyun had already come to look for him before he could go and look for him. Third brother, how was it? That little guy was very difficult to deal with, right? Ao Fengyun's white clothes fluttered in the wind as he spoke in a handsome manner. Then he found the 2 corpses. His eyelids twitched. What's going on? Didn't I warn you? How come such unnecessary casualties have occurred? The blue veins on Ao Qingyun's forehead throbbed. Old master, you are too despicable. What kind of warning was that? That was purely a trap, okay? Ao Fengyun's complexion changed. Third brother, what you're saying is meaningless. I warned you with good intentions. But you didn't do it? Ao Qingyun snorted. He was about to speak. But he was stopped by the old man behind him. The 2 brothers looked at each other. Then, they fiercely snorted from their nostrils. What do you plan to do with the Gu clan? Ao Fengyun knew when to stop. So, he asked in a modest manner. I naturally have my own plans, Ao Qingyun replied angrily. Third brother, do you mean that you want to break up with me? Ao Fengyun narrowed his eyes. Third brother, both sides benefit if we cooperate. And both sides lose if we don't cooperate. You know this. We brothers are born from the same mother. So, why should we harm our friendship over such a trivial matter? Ao Qingyun snorted. He thought in his heart, we are the weakest among all the people who have come out this time. So, it would be inappropriate if we were to separate. He had no choice but to pinch his nose and agree. The Gu clan still has a weakness. And that is its insufficient heritage. It's impossible to rely on Gu Du Xing, a sword emperor. Ao Qingyun let out a muffled sigh. I think that our plan of suppressing Gu Du Xing is no longer feasible. We should start with the Gu clan. Then we should threaten Gu Du Xing instead. Third brother's wisdom is higher than the heavens. Ao Fengyun praised him. Since this is the case, we shouldn't delay any longer. We should hurry to the Gu clan. Go. The 2 groups of people mixed together and set off at the same time. However, the words of these 2 men had made the several emperor-level experts who had followed them secretly feel a chill in their hearts. Why should we hurt our friendship over such a small matter? Could it be that the lives of 2 emperor-level experts and 3 king-level experts are only a small matter in your eyes? Gu Duxing left like a whirlwind. However, he was secretly on high alert in his heart. It seems that the current situation is somewhat out of control. Ao clan was created in order to make use of their military strength to deal with Tian clan, Li clan, and Tu clan. But now, it has clearly deviated from the established direction. After Ao clan came out, they didn't immediately launch a strike against the other clans. Instead, they started to contend for hegemony in the Jianghu. The brothers seemed to be plotting against each other. It was really unexpected that such a situation would occur. I wonder what Chu Yang will do if he knows about this. However, the most important thing right now was that these two men from the AO clan had clearly set their sights on the Gu clan first. They had to get past this hurdle first. But how was he going to pass this trial? As Gu Duxing sped along, he racked his brains. The Gu clan was too weak. They couldn't afford to offend the AO clan in a head-on confrontation. Moreover, this was contrary to Chu Yang's established policy. I would only be hurting those close to me and making my enemies happy if I were to fight with these two young bastards. I would be doing a great favor to Tu Qianhao and the others for no reason. And Chu Yang and the other brothers wouldn't look on with folded arms. They would certainly stand on my side. That would be a complete mess. I can't involve Chu Yang and the others. I can only solve this problem on my own, Gu Duxing thought along the way. He had a headache from thinking. But he couldn't come up with any solution. At this moment he finally realized his own shortcomings. Perhaps he was an invincible general who could conquer cities and strongholds, but when it came to controlling the overall situation, he was still far from being able to do so. I want to protect myself in such a complicated situation. I don't want to implicate my brothers and allies. And I also want to resist the pressure of the AO clan. It's very difficult. Gu Duxing sighed. He thought, I'm afraid that Chu Yang would have had endless tricks up his sleeves if it were him. But I'm helpless when it's my turn. Then he suddenly thought of something. What would Chu Yang do if he were in my position? With these thoughts in mind, Zhang Xian flew forward. Chu Yang went on the road alone. He went all the way east. Along the way, he unleashed his powerful spiritual power. While he hurried, he investigated. At the same time, he released the Calamity Sword to sense the elixirs. 1,000 miles went by smoothly. There was no wind or waves. Chu Yang felt strange. Logically speaking, someone should have tried to kill me. But I've already walked so far. I've passed 3 or 4 dangerous places along the way. So, why hasn't anything happened? There's still a long way to go. But I'm on a scenic tour. So, I'm not walking fast. Are they afraid of getting old? While he was thinking, the sword spirit suddenly exclaimed, There's a situation ahead. A situation? Minister Chu was startled. With a swoosh, his black clothes disappeared into the grass. His movements were extremely agile. Cough cough. There's a situation 20 miles away. The sword spirit was somewhat speechless. This guy didn't wait for me to finish speaking. And he disappeared without a trace. What? Why didn't you say so earlier? Chu Yang angrily got up and said, I was just being cautious. You're just a bird startled by the twang of a bough. The sword spirit sneered mercilessly. Chu Yang rolled his eyes. I'm all alone now. How can I not be careful? If I die, won't you die with me? I'm thinking for you. Don't be ungrateful. The sword spirit was speechless. I was obviously being overly careful. But I'm thinking for someone else. I've seen thick-skinned people. But I've never seen such a thick-skinned person. Who's that in front? Do you have any impression? Chu Yang asked in his mind as he cautiously climbed up and down. A little closer. I can't detect it now, the sword spirit said. Chu Yang lowered his head and ran. He used his concealment technique to the extreme. Even if he stared, he could only see the grass swaying. The trees in the forest swayed. If he could switch to slow motion, he could see that he was sometimes running, sometimes crouching, sometimes turning sideways, sometimes walking backward, and sometimes somersaulting. What was worth mentioning was that when he made these movements, he actually made use of the reflection of the grass on the ground and the refraction of the sunlight in the sky to hide his figure. Therefore, in broad daylight, he actually turned into a specter. The road was getting shorter little by little. 15 kilometers, 5 kilometers. Finally, the sword spirit issued a warning when they were close to 3 kilometers away. Well, the opposite party has experts. Be careful not to be detected. Chu Yang was startled. He then lightened his footsteps. Thousands of feet? How can I be detected? Could it be that the opposite party has a super emperor-level expert? Well, these people in front of us are the most tyrannical in terms of strength, except for Ku Feng of the O clan. The sword spirit's voice was very cautious. Chu Yang sucked in a cold breath. So powerful? Moreover, they have clearly obtained accurate information. And they have a clear target. They have come to deal with you. The sword spirit carefully sensed and said, but their auras are very familiar. Several of them have an aura similar to Ao Xieyun's. Chu Yang was gobsmacked. His breathing became chaotic. Are you sure? I'm sure. The sword spirit was very sure. Chu Yang's mind was somewhat in a knot. He said in frustration, the people of the Ao clan? What reason do the people of the Ao clan have to deal with me? They should be dealing with the Tian clan, Tu clan, and the Black Devil clan. Why are they dealing with me instead? How much did this duke help them? How can they be so ungrateful? The sword spirit was also puzzled after pondering for a long time. After all, Ao clan didn't have any reason to attack Chu Yang first. Could it be that they are looking for you to inquire about Ao Xieyun? The sword spirit probed. Absolutely not. They would have come to me openly if that were the case. They wouldn't have sneakily set up an ambush like this. A cold light flashed in Chu Yang's eyes. He then extended his hand and wiped his face. Then he spread his arms, and a burst of crackling sounds came from inside his body. His slender stature had become 3 inches shorter. It had become somewhat stout. He had a leopard head and round eyes. His face was fierce and fierce. He groped around in the tribulation space for a while. Then he pulled out a broadsword. Then he thought for a while. Then he took out a veil and covered his face. You've already changed your appearance. Why do you still want to cover your face? The sword spirit was puzzled. This is the ingenuity of this plan. Chu Yang snorted. Then he wrinkled his brows. He felt that something was wrong and said, You've also seen the appearance of the young Black Devil. Can you imitate him even a little bit? The sword spirit wrinkled his brows and said, I can use my spiritual power to help you, but it can only last for half an hour. Half an hour? That's enough. Chu Yang was overjoyed. He immediately restored his changed appearance to its original state. Then, a grayish mist came out of his body. He was now wearing a black robe and a black mask. He looked exactly like a young Black Devil. He was just standing there. But his whole body was emitting a gloomy aura. The most important thing is your eyes. The sword spirit reminded. No problem. Chu Yang's vision condensed. Then, his eyes suddenly changed into the cruel and ruthless eyes of a scavenger vulture in the desert. At first glance, he looked exactly like a young Black Devil. Whether it was his figure, charm, or the temperament of his eyes, or the characteristics of his cultivation techniques, everything was perfect. This impostor laughed strangely in a hoarse voice and said, The trifling Ao clan dares to oppose my Black Devil? They don't know the meaning of death. Watch me kill them one by one. He rushed out with a shoo sound. Don't be rash. It's better to check first. What if they don't have any evil intentions? The sword spirit hastily reminded him. There's no need to check. You must pay the price if you dare to provoke my Black Devil. Minister Chu had clearly gotten into the act. He was emitting a murderous aura. Chapter 607. Chu Yang was indeed going crazy. The O clan has no reason to deal with me in any case. But of all people, they had come to deal with him. This was tantamount to biting the hand that fed him. Regardless of whether it was true or not, the news of Ao Xieyun being rescued by him had already spread throughout the Jianghu. It would definitely reach their ears, and they would be even more unable to deal with him. It was already too late for him to express his gratitude, yet he had actually set up an ambush? The minister was instantly enraged. No matter what the other party was thinking, this time, he was determined to teach the other party a lesson. Then he quietly crouched down. In an instant, he retracted all of his life force fluctuations. All of his heartbeat, pulse, and other life force disappeared in an instant. It was as if he was a piece of rotten wood. Because the sword spirit was speaking in his mind. There are 3 people talking. What did he say? The first one said, "Why isn't he here yet?" Then the other one said, "Don't tell me he's gone?" The sword spirit said. Chu Yang gritted his teeth and asked, "How was his tone?" The sword spirit said in a deep voice, "It's full of killing intent." Chu Yang snorted heavily in his heart. This group of people was Ao Lang Yun of the Ao clan's detachment. He was the number 2 figure of Ao clan's younger generation apart from Ao Xie Yun. Ao Lang Yun had arrived here with his people after he had dealt a heavy blow to the Tian clan's industry. And he had done so in order to stop King of Hell Chu. Old Third and Old Fourth have already fought with Gu Du Xing twice. Old Fifth has also fought with Dong Wushang once, but he managed to escape. There's no news from Fourth Brother, who's trying to intercept GMO's 7th Brother, has already started fighting with Luo Kadi. Luo Kadi is injured and has left. Ao Lang Yun frowned. This means that the information is correct. But why hasn't Big Brother King of Hell Chu arrived yet? Could it be that this fellow has been sightseeing all this time? Beside him were 2 old men in brocade robes. Their eyes shined brightly, and one of them said, "Second young master, there is no need to worry. Just relax and wait a little longer. King of Hell Chu couldn't have passed by here. Or he might have been delayed by something on the way." Another person said, "However, dealing with King of Hell Chu this time is somewhat inappropriate. We must keep it strictly confidential. Ao clan will be labeled as repaying kindness with enmity if this matter spreads out." Ao Lang Yun snorted in a low voice. Then he said to his confidant without any reservation, "First, King of Hell Chu is meddling in other people's business. There is a rumor in the Jianghu that King of Hell Chu saved Ao Xie Yun. Whether this matter is true or not, there is no smoke without fire. According to my speculation, it is very likely to be true. This alone is enough for him to be sentenced to death. Secondly, King of Hell Chu may not have saved Ao Xie Yun out of kindness. The Mo clan, the Dong clan, and the other clans are on the opposite side of the alliance. So, they bear the brunt of the attack. However, they haven't taken any action since the beginning. Their intention is none other than to let our Ao clan make the first move. Then, they'll sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. After that, they'll reap the fruits of our labor. Such an intention is worthy of death. But the news of King of Hell Chu rescuing Ao Xie Yun spread out at this time and confused everyone. So, Ao clan had a clear target for revenge. This shows that King of Hell Chu and Mo Tianji are in cahoots with each other. Thirdly, King of Hell Chu led the Heavenly Armament Pavilion to destroy the O clan overnight. So, the strength of the Heavenly Armament Pavilion can't be underestimated. The military strength of the Heavenly Armament Pavilion is obvious to all, even if they have the help of the Xie clan. So, they will become a big threat to us over time. Especially now that the Jianghu is in turmoil. And the ambitions of the Heavenly Armament Pavilion are very clear. They must be eliminated or disintegrated as soon as possible. Otherwise, they will become the biggest enemy of our Ao clan once they are fully fledged. They may become the next Black Devil clan. Fourthly, Gu Du Xing, Dong Wushang, and the others are outstanding talents of the younger generation. They have great prospects for development. I must have such young experts with potential as my right-hand men if I want to become the next clan lord. The Jianghu is in chaos now. So, it is a God-sent opportunity to subdue them. However, King of Hell Chu is their boss. So, how can they change their allegiance if King of Hell Chu doesn't die? Therefore, King of Hell Chu must die. They can be used by King of Hell Chu. So, they can certainly be used by me. Ao Lang Yun coldly snorted. He then insipidly said, "What can King of Hell Chu give them? And I can give them 10 times what King of Hell Chu can give them. In fact, I can give them even more. This is the reason why I want to kill King of Hell Chu. Moreover, King of Hell Chu is the first person I must kill." Ao Lang Yun insipidly said, "You can say that I'm an ungrateful person who bites the hand that feeds me. But, King of Hell Chu must never live in this world. The two old men beside him tightly knitted their brows. They pondered for a while. Then, they finally heaved a long sigh. King of Hell Chu had saved Ao Xie Yun. So, it was tantamount to setting himself against Ao Lang Yun. These matters were only Ao Lang Yun's speculations. But, they weren't necessarily false. It seems that King of Hell Chu must die if this is the case. The two old men looked at each other. Then, they stopped trying to dissuade Ao Lang Yun. Ao Lang Yun smiled and said, "I will personally dispatch 100 experts to kill him this time. So, King of Hell Chu should feel very proud even if he dies." The two old men forced a smile. Of course, the conversation between them was transmitted to the sword spirit's ears, and through the sword spirit, it was transmitted to Chu Yang's ears. King of Hell Chu's lungs were about to explode in anger. "I'm selfish. I want to fight for power and profit. So, why should I push all the blame to others? I'm AB*Tsich, but I still want a monument to my chastity. Is there such a beautiful thing in this world? Those big clans are targeting your Ao clan. They are hunting down Ao Xie Yun. What does Old Man Guan have to do with this?" Old Man Guan was just happy to see this happen. Even Mo Tianji didn't add fuel to the fire, right? Chu Yang's murderous aura soared from his entire body. This made the sword spirit understand. This battle is unavoidable. He sighed softly, "Be careful. The opposite party has 2 8th grade Emperor-level experts. They also have 10 4th or 5th grade Emperor-level experts. The remaining 80-odd people are all King-level experts." Chu Yang gently nodded. His murderous aura and anger receded like a tide. He regained his calmness. "This might be the most arduous battle I've ever had since I started my career. But it's not my style to run away without fighting. Let me kill to stop the killing. I'll chop you ungrateful bastards to death. So what if you're from Ao clan? Aren't your necks made of meat?" A burst of cool breeze blew over. Chu Yang's body floated along with the wind. He then entered the dense forest in front of him like a flash of lightning. This was the place where Ao clan had set up their ambush. This was a dense forest of ancient pines. The dense pines covered the entire sky. Even though it was daytime and the sun was high up in the sky, the forest of ancient pines was still gloomy and gloomy. It was like a ghost's domain. There seems to be some movement. The two old men in embroidered robes stood beside Ao Lang Yun. They wrinkled their brows and looked all around. A scream came from the periphery. The sound had come from the south. The complexion of the two men changed. One of them stayed behind, and the other one disappeared from where he was standing. "Let's go and take a look," Ao Lang Yun calmly said. The two men chased after him. They arrived in the direction where the sound had come from. They looked and couldn't help but feel a chill run down their spines. They saw that a king-level expert of Ao clan was facing outside. His body was off the ground. He was firmly fixed to a pine tree by a pine branch. His body was dead, but his eyes were wide open. His eyes were full of panic and despair. This man's pants had fallen to his feet. They were hanging on the ground. His lower body was completely naked. There was a thin sword mark on his throat. He must have been attacked when he was relieving himself. His throat was cut by a sword. Then he was nailed to the tree by a pine branch. The eyes of that Emperor expert flashed as he said in a heavy voice. The other embroidered robed Emperor expert stepped forward and carefully examined him. Then he said, "This man has a divine weapon. The cut seems fine. But even his Adam's apple and neck have been cut in half. Moreover, this man's skill isn't lower than a 5th grade king-level expert. Especially, he's an expert in assassination." Ao Lang Yun's complexion became serious. He extended his hand and waved, "Everyone, pay attention and be on guard. You must intercept and kill this man if you find him." Many people in the shadows agreed at the same time. The two embroidered robed Emperor experts became anxious. They shouted, "Everyone, withdraw from your original positions. Immediately change your positions." However, before he could finish speaking, another blood-curdling scream rang out. This time, it came from the north. Bless. The embroidered-robed emperor expert stamped his foot. His heart was full of powerlessness. Second young master, how could you issue an order a moment ago? You should have added, don't make a sound, even if you had issued an order. They would have complied if you had issued an order. But this compliance is tantamount to providing targets for the assassins in the dark. It seemed that this embroidered-robed old man had a very high status in the Ao clan. He had dared to reprimand Ao Lang Yun to his face. His tone was tactful. But it was obvious that he was blaming Ao Lang Yun. Yes, it's my fault. Ao Lang Yun readily accepted the good advice. He bowed his head and admitted his mistake. I don't know much about this kind of strategy. So, I ask Uncle Kai to take full command. This Uncle Kai's name was Kai Xiaoqing. He and Li Changlong were two of the 8 great bodyguards of the Ao clan's clan lord, Ao Tianxing. 4 of these 8 bodyguards had followed Ao Xie Yun. 2 of them had been assigned to Ao Lang Yun. And the other 2 had been assigned to other people. This was also the Ao clan's way of protecting their younger brothers. Kai Xiaoqing wasn't modest. This wasn't the time to be modest. He repeatedly issued orders. Everyone, listen to my order. Leave your original hiding positions. Then, slowly gather around the center. Your movements don't need to be fast. But, don't make a sound. Then, he slipped away in the direction of the north. There was a big hole in the chest of a king-level expert. He was powerlessly sitting on the ground. He was no longer alive. So ruthless. Li Changlong clenched his teeth and said, this man clearly had the ability to kill him without making him scream. But he made him scream before he died. This man's ruthlessness and mercilessness can make one's hair stand on end. Who is this man? Ao Lang Yun asked, could it be King of Hell Chu? Kai Xiaoqing and Li Changlong looked at each other and saw the uncertainty in each other's eyes. A rustling sound came from the pine forest. It was the sound of the ambushing experts rushing over. The enemy wouldn't be able to assassinate them silently as long as they formed a circle around each other. However, screams suddenly resounded one after another at this moment. Kai Xiaoqing bellowed loudly. Then he shook his arms and flew in the direction of the sound like a big bird. Chapter 608. He saw that 4 people were lying on the ground hundreds of feet away. Their bodies were covered in blood. They had been cut into 8 pieces. Everyone was looking in the same direction. It was obvious that the enemy had attacked them from behind. 4 people had been killed in one blow. The smell of blood was faintly spreading in the black pine forest. It was close to the afternoon. The wind was blowing in the pine forest and issued a rustling sound. The branches of the black pine forest were swaying gently. Countless shadows were swaying on the ground. It was daytime, but it had added a gloomy feeling to it. Kai Xiaoqing glared at them. Then he suddenly shouted like a spring thunder, "Who's behind this? Come out and fight with me if you're Han." His voice spread far and wide like a spring thunder. It shook the dense pine needles on top of their heads and made them rustle down. Li Changlong's eyes flashed. He then said in a heavy voice, "King of Hell Chu, it's you, right? What? You dare to do it, but you don't dare to admit it?" His voice had already spread out. But the black pine forest remained silent. No one answered him. Kai Xiaoqing's lightning-like eyes swept back and forth. Suddenly, a golden light flashed. Kai Xiaoqing bellowed, "Be careful!" He flew up and grabbed the golden light before it could pierce the back of a king-level expert. It was a small and exquisite dagger. It was only half the length of a palm. It didn't have any craftsmanship to speak of. The only praiseworthy thing about it was its sharpness. Everyone's gaze subconsciously followed Kai Xiaoqing's silhouette the moment he leapt out. But at this moment, 3 black lights suddenly shot out from another direction without a sound. The 3 black daggers were inserted into the backs of the 3 king-level experts. Li Changlong bellowed and rushed out in large strides. He rushed into the place where the 3 black lights had shot from like lightning. But there was no one there. In fact, there wasn't even the slightest sound. They hadn't even touched the enemy's shadow in a short period of time. But They had already lost 3 experts in silence. It was as if he had to fight a ghost in a foggy land. Ao Lang Yun tightly clenched his hands together. His palms were dripping with cold sweat. He felt a chill run down his spine. When had he ever experienced such an eerie and terrifying battle in his life? Suddenly, a voice drifted over. It came from the left and then from the right. It said in a cold and gloomy voice, "Hee, not bad. It seems that you have some knowledge." "Yes, I am King of Hell Chu." This voice seemed to carry the dampness of hell, making people feel extremely uncomfortable when they heard it. Kai Xiaocheng and Li Changlong condensed their entire cultivation. But they couldn't tell where this voice was coming from. He only felt that this voice was faintly discernible. A moment ago, it was still in the south, but the next moment, it was in the north. However, the distance between the south and the north was nearly 1,000 feet. A formidable opponent. Kai Xiaocheng and Li Changlong thought about this at the same time. Li Changlong also overturned his previous conclusion. The opposite party is definitely not a king-level expert. He must be at least an emperor-level expert. "You are not King of Hell Chu." Kai Xiaocheng calmed himself down and shouted in a cold voice, "King of Hell Chu is cunning and ruthless, but he definitely doesn't have the cultivation level of your excellency. Why do you want to oppose my Ao clan?" There was one more thing that he hadn't said. King of Hell Chu isn't as gloomy as a ghost like you. In the black pine forest, there was silence again. It was deathly silent. A gloomy aura had been emitted, but it was quickly withdrawn. Kai Xiaocheng's gaze turned cold. He silently floated out. He didn't make any sound, but he was as fast as lightning. He arrived on the opposite side in a flash. Then he shook his hand, and a few big trees were shattered by his palm with a loud bang. A piece of black cloth fluttered in the air. Kai Xiaocheng floated over like a ghost and grabbed that piece of black cloth in his hand. Then he looked at it with rapt attention. However, he couldn't see anything. So he suspiciously grabbed that piece of cloth and returned. That gloomy aura that had been emitted a moment ago was lingering in his mind. He felt that it was very familiar, but he couldn't remember it. "What did you find?" Li Changlong flew over. "You take a look." Kai Xiaocheng handed over that piece of black cloth. "A piece of black cloth?" Li Changlong asked in a puzzled manner. He then brought that piece of cloth to his nose and sniffed it. "Be careful, it's poisonous." Kai Xiaocheng hastily reminded him. "It's nothing. It doesn't smell anything." Li Changlong smiled. He then turned over the piece of cloth and said, "It's an ordinary piece of black cloth. It seems that it was shattered by a palm. But I didn't see anyone's shadow even after I shattered the cloth. This matter is extremely strange." Kai Xiaocheng frowned. "Moreover, I seem to have felt a strange aura a moment ago." "It's very," he spoke till here. Then he suddenly bellowed, "Dodge." He flew forward. His speed was so fast that he left a trail of green smoke behind him. A golden light had already reached Ao Lang Yun's back. Kai Xiaocheng bellowed and grabbed that golden light with all his might. The tip of his sword was less than an inch away from Ao Lang Yun's back. Li Changlong bellowed and pounced in the direction where the golden light had come from. 40-50 people moved at the same time and besieged that place. Suddenly, a few more black lights silently appeared from another direction. The blade light was almost the same color as the air. Then, the 5 people's backs were hit while they were charging forward. Several blood-curdling screams were heard. Then, the 5 people fell to the ground and rolled back and forth. The enemy had launched too many hidden weapons this time. So, they weren't fatal. However, one of them had been stabbed in the back of his heart and had lost his life. Bean-sized beads of sweat were unceasingly dripping down from Ao Lang Yun's forehead. He had almost stepped into the yellow springs a moment ago. He had been so close. His complexion had turned deathly pale. He was trying his best to remain calm. However, a panic-stricken look had already appeared in his eyes. The enemy's movements were as fast as a ghost's. 2 8th-grade Emperor-level experts couldn't even catch the enemy's shadow. This dark forest seemed to have turned into a place of death. They could only look on helplessly as people died one after another. Rush out of the forest. Kai Shaoqing bellowed. The blue veins on his face were visible. He had already realized that the enemy was a top-notch assassin. Confronting the enemy in a place like this forest was equivalent to fighting the Dragon King in the water. This place was the enemy's absolute home ground. The enemy would have nowhere to hide only if they rushed out into an open area under the sun. Li Changlong suddenly came to his senses. He repeatedly whistled and led everyone to crowd around Ao Lang Yun to escape. Everyone had been full of confidence at the beginning of the ambush. They had thought that they would be able to capture King of Hell Chu as soon as he arrived. Who would have thought that they would run out of the forest in such a distressed manner? This was undoubtedly a huge irony. Another golden light flashed. Li Changlong put his hands together and caught the golden light in his hands. His nose became crooked as soon as he saw it. This is a piece of crushed gold. He casually threw it on the ground. Then he saw 3 golden lights shooting from another direction out of the corner of his eyes. Li Changlong leaped and caught them one by one. He was so sullen in his heart that he almost cursed, "All of them are gold." Suddenly, a dense black light flashed from another direction. Li Changlong's heart skipped a beat. He knew that the enemy had finally launched a killing move. He roared and shook his hands. Then he pounced in the direction of the person on the left. He had already figured out the pattern of this person's attack. He would leave immediately if his attack failed. In fact, this person would have left his hiding position at the same time he had launched his attack. This person has launched 3 attacks in a row. So, he's most likely to appear in this direction. It doesn't matter even if he isn't. The route that I'm pouncing on is one of the 3 directions that the enemy has taken. So, I'm sure that I'll be able to intercept him if there's any movement. However, his body had barely flown 70 feet away when a series of sharp, puff sounds resounded. Then, more than 10 golden lights were shot from the place where the hidden weapons had been shot. The strength of these attacks was very fast. He hadn't changed his position this time. Damn it! Li Changlong's eyes were bloodshot. He wanted to change his direction. But it was already too late. The 13 golden lights seemed to have been calculated. They were very scattered, and each of them was aimed at a single person. Kai Shaoqing, who was standing beside Ao Lang Yun, was caught off guard. He desperately turned around to intercept them, but he was only able to block 5 of them. Orderly screams resounded. 8 people were injured at the same time. Kai Shaoqing's beard were like halberds. He shouted, "Don't worry about anything. Let's rush out of the Black Pine Forest first." Even this 8th grade Emperor-level expert felt fear in his heart at this moment. Who is the opposite party? How could they be so vicious? Such superb? Kai Shaoqing didn't want to admit it in his heart, but he had to admit that the opposite party's assassination level was at the top of the world. He vigilantly looked in all directions. Then he drew back step by step and personally brought up the rear. Suddenly, a burst of screams was heard. The team behind him was in a state of panic. Kai Shaoqing angrily shouted, "What are you panicking about?" "Poison. The daggers and swords are poisoned." The poison flared up as soon as they were pulled out. A person screamed miserably. Kai Shaoqing's heart shook. He hurriedly went over to take a look. He only felt a chill run down his spine. The 12 injured king-level experts had clenched their teeth and persevered. They hadn't even wrinkled their brows. But they had died as soon as the daggers had been pulled out. In fact, they hadn't even left behind a word. 22 people. The opposite party hadn't even shown up. And 22 experts had already died on his side. The king-level experts had died. None of the emperor-level experts had been injured. However, this was still a huge loss after all. Kai Shaoqing had never seen such a cunning and cruel enemy in his more than 30 years of adventuring in the Jianghu. Everyone was about to rush out of the jungle when they saw that the sunlight in front of them was distorted. It seemed that the enemy's mood was fluctuating intensely in the dark. He wasn't willing to let them escape. Suddenly, a burst of gloomy aura spread out. Then, it seemed to be forcibly restrained. Kai Shaoqing's heart was moved again. It's so familiar. It's so familiar. This name should have been on the tip of my tongue. But why can't I remember it? Suddenly, a burst of golden light flashed. Dozens of golden lights pounced out at the same time this time. Kai Shaoqing shouted loudly and leaped to intercept them. Meanwhile, a black light spread out from another direction like an inescapable net. Li Changlong issued a long and loud shout. His body moved like a dragon and fluttered in the air. Then, Kai Shaoqing angrily rushed into the place where the black light had shot out from. He was 100% sure that the opposite party hadn't left this time. That's because I've locked onto him with my aura a moment ago. He shouldn't have chased him so close. Kai Shaoqing's heart was filled with joy. He flew and pounced forward. A black shadow flew out from the shadows like a swallow and flew outwards. You still want to run? Stay here. Kai Shaoqing roared loudly. He mobilized his lifelong martial power and shot his palms with all his might. That man didn't have enough time to evade. So, he was forced to helplessly sneer. Then, his long sword flashed a sword light and flew out of his hand. That gloomy aura pervaded the air once again. However, the range of this attack was much larger this time. A divine light flashed in Kai Shaoqing's mind. He finally realized why this gloomy aura was so familiar. He smashed the flying sword into pieces with a bang. Then he roared in a violent rage, "Black Devil! So it's you. You even pretended to be king of Hell Chu. You're too shameless." Chapter 609. Kai Shaoqing finally remembered why he had learned it with such familiarity. Isn't this gloomy smell the unique aura of the Black Devil clan? He has killed so many of my people like a ghost. Perhaps, only the core assassins of the Black Devil clan have such a method of assassination in the entire world. That man had been shaken by Chu Yang's palm. He was wearing a black robe and a black mask. Then he finally revealed himself. He made a turn in the air and jumped up a big tree like a meteor. Then he sinisterly smiled and said, "I, King of Hell Chu, will never impersonate someone else." What Black Devil? Have you become senile? Li Changlong had already rushed over while he was speaking. He angrily shouted, "Black Devil, you're extremely despicable and shameless. You've been killed and you still want to quibble? Blood for blood. Leave your life for this old man." That big tree was smashed to pieces with a loud bang. A black silhouette flew up in a swaying manner. He flashed under the setting sun and said with a sinister smile, "Ao clan is nothing more than this. Ridiculous, ridiculous." Then he suddenly soared high into the sky and rushed over before Kai Shaoqing could catch up with him again. Then he soared high into the sky and rushed over for 17 feet. His toes landed on a branch of a big tree. He was about to borrow the strength of the branch to fly out. A silhouette flashed, and Li Changlong appeared in front of him like a ghost. Then he shot his palm. That black silhouette fell backwards and fell to the ground like a meteorite. His mask was shattered by the strong wind generated by the palm. It fluttered in the sky like a black butterfly. That man choked and coughed. He then said with difficulty, "Good palm strength." Li Changlong had caught a glimpse of that man's appearance. He had hawk-like eyes, sharp nose, and sword-like eyebrows. His entire face was emitting an intense, sinister aura. He couldn't help but fly into a rage. "Black Devil, it's really you. What else do you have to say?" That man coldly snorted and landed on the ground. Li Changlong and Kai Shaoqing flew over at the same time. Suddenly, a burst of pink smoke rose from the place where that man had landed with a bang. Kai Shaoqing was far away, so he hastily stopped his footsteps. However, Li Changlong had already rushed into the pink smoke. Only 7 or 8 consecutive collision sounds were heard from the smoke. Then, a black silhouette distorted the space and flashed a few times. Then he spouted a mouthful of blood and disappeared. Li Changlong rushed out of the pink smoke with a flushed face. Kai Shaoqing still wanted to chase after him. However, Li Changlong shouted loudly, "Don't chase after him. Kai Shaocheng turned his head in amazement and saw that Li Changlong's body was on the verge of collapse. He was startled and wanted to come over to support him. "Don't come over. Don't touch me," Li Changlong roared. Kai Shaocheng was stunned. Li Changlong smiled sadly. "What a vicious black devil. What an obscene HMO. In the end, I still fell into his trap." Kai Shaocheng was shocked. "What's wrong?" Then he realized, that pink smoke. Li Changlong exposed an indescribable expression on his face. He felt an intense shame and indignation. He clenched his teeth and said, "It's the lust poison of the lust dragon. That's why I stopped you. If both of us are poisoned, then we're done for." Ugh. Kai Shaocheng was dumbfounded, as if he had been petrified. He suddenly understood why Li Changlong had such an expression on his face. He couldn't help but look up to the sky and curse loudly. Filthy words came out of his mouth, but he still couldn't quell the resentment in his heart. Who would have thought that the black devil would carry such a sinister technique as the lust poison of the lust mosquito? There was no antidote for the poison of the lust mosquito. One could only rely on the intercourse between a man and a woman to get rid of this lust poison. However, one's entire body would turn into pus and die if they couldn't excrete it within 3 hours. Li Changlong was more than 10 years old this year. Moreover, he was an 8th grade emperor-level expert. So, how could he lay his hands on a woman even if he found one? This was related to his lifelong reputation and chastity. Moreover, how could there be a stunning beauty in such a desolate place? He would be considered lucky if he could find a village girl at best. And it was absolutely impossible for him to return to the Ao clan. Li Changlong's face turned green and white. He then said in a hoarse voice, "I can suppress it for 10 hours at most with my cultivation. After 10 hours, I'll be beyond saving." "Brother Li, hurry up and find one." "Find one?" Kai Shaocheng fiercely stamped his feet. How could he say such words? How can this old man lose face like this? Li Changlong's lips trembled. Then he exhausted all his strength and loudly cursed, "Black devil, I'm dead." Li Changlong had an impulse to cry after he had cursed. Even if he had been poisoned by that kind of poison, it would still be better than this. This is simply tormenting people to death, in the most humiliating way. This enmity is really big. Brother Li, a real man shouldn't be so petty. Your life is more important. You don't have to worry about firewood as long as you're alive. Kai Shaocheng anxiously advised. Besides, no one else knows about this matter. The heaven and the earth know about it. I, Kai Shaocheng, swear to the heavens that I'll die a miserable death if I reveal even a little bit of this matter. I'll make my grandchildren slaves and maids. Brother Kai. Li Changlong stamped his feet and sighed. Why did you make such a heavy oath? There's no time to lose. Let's go and look for it immediately. Kai Shaocheng said, that black devil has been injured by you. He won't dare to come again. Let second young master and the others wait here for a while. I'll go with you. I'll go and look for it myself, Li Changlong refused. He obviously didn't want to die. But, how can I let someone look at this matter from the side? We've been brothers for decades. But I can't do that. It's embarrassing. You do what you need to do. I'll keep watch for you. Kai Shaocheng and Li Changlong blushed after they had finished speaking. Both of them were people of virtue and prestige in the Ao clan. But they felt embarrassed when they were discussing such a topic. The Li clan's territory is 700 miles to the west from here. There's a town there. So, there must be a brothel there. Kai Shaocheng lowered his head. We'll arrive there in 10 hours with our speed. Brothel? The muscles on Li Changlong's face trembled. You want me to go to a brothel? Kai Shaocheng's face turned red as he angrily said, You've locked your manhood for so many years. And you've got the lust poison of the lust dragon now. Do you think that a woman can satisfy you? His face turned red as he said, I'm afraid that you won't be able to. Li Changlong's complexion stiffened. His complexion turned purple as he muttered, Then, I can only go? How can there be so many women apart from the brothel? Kai Shaoqing gasped for breath. Li Changlong smiled bitterly. I've never set foot in a brothel in my entire life. But I've reached my old age now. And I have to, alas. He heaved a long sigh. Kai Shaoqing anxiously urged him, don't sigh. Let's go quickly. For late. The two hurriedly ran to Ao Lang Yun's side and said that they had something to do. So, they had to leave for the time being. They also asked them to wait in an open area. They didn't even wait for a reply. Then, the two 8th grade Emperor-level experts soared up and left impatiently. Li Changlong gnashed his teeth in anger as he vowed. I swear that I won't be a man if I don't slaughter the Black Devil clan in this lifetime. Ao Lang Yun was puzzled as he looked in the direction in which the two Emperor-level experts had left. He was at a loss. At such a critical moment, what could be more important than the plan here? What will you do if King of Hell Chu comes after you two leave? This isn't a big plan. He felt depressed in his heart. So he sat down sullenly. Then, an intense desire to recruit subordinates of his own rose in his heart. Chu Yang flew out like a meteor. He stuck close to the ground and shot out like a black smoke. He rushed out more than 50 kilometers in one breath. And the color of the sky had finally darkened. Chu Yang jumped into the jungle with a schwa sound. He then coughed out the blood he had been suppressing. He had racked his brains and exhausted all his skills. Moreover, he had managed to escape from the Black Pine Forest with the help of the Sword Spirit. Moreover, he had taught the enemy a bloody lesson. Moreover, he had successfully framed the Black Devil clan. However, he had also paid a huge price. Moreover, he had suffered a lot when he had clashed with Li Changlong in the end. It was just a short collision, but he had already consumed 2 incomplete heavy pills. He had needed one more to escape here. This meant that Chu Yang had encountered 3 life and death crises in the short span of a blink of an eye. Perhaps, Chu Yang would have had no choice but to let the sword spirit take over his body if Li Changlong hadn't diverted half of his martial power to prevent the pink smoke from invading his body. However, all of this was worth it. Presumably, Ao Lang Yun and the others' hatred towards He Shu would have grown like bamboo shoots after the rain. Naturally, it would have been better if that Emperor-level expert had been turned into pus by the aphrodisiac poison. Chu Yang spat out blood as he hastily took out the incomplete versions of the heavy pills and swallowed them. Then, he maliciously thought in his heart, it would have been lively if Li Changlong didn't know what kind of poison this was. And he would have called everyone to take a sniff of it. Everyone would have stuck out their crotches and looked for a brothel. 70 or 80 people would have pitched tents at the same time. I believe that the scene would have been spectacular. The sword spirit saw that Chu Yang had finally recovered. So, he asked, there's one thing that I don't understand. You can't speak in a faintly discernible voice with your current cultivation. How did you do it? Chu Yang snorted and said with a smile, didn't you notice that I had patted a big tree in every direction since I had entered the forest? In fact, I had patted one tree in every 100 trees. I noticed that. But what does that have to do with this? The sword spirit was puzzled. I used Yin energy when I patted the trees. So, the insides of the trees had already been shattered by me. And they had become empty shells. Then I deliberately aimed my energy at those trees when I spoke. So, an echo was naturally transmitted from those trees. Therefore, my voice could be heard from all directions. Chu Yang smiled and said, one has to be careful in Jianghu. Especially, one must be cautious in a life and death situation. Sword spirit, you must learn this from me. The sword spirit didn't speak. This guy has been using my spiritual power to help him. And he had to rely on my heavy pills to save his life. But he has turned around to teach me a lesson. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.